Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome into episode 12 of Catch and Counter. Little late today. Little late today. We've been taking care of business, doing our own things. Nibs. Before we get into it, just one guy who we've been taking care of our things. There was one guy last week who didn't take care of his things. First of all, how you doing? Then get into this. I'll just let you start. Get into what the heck we saw last Saturday between Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury, because we didn't give this fight we didn't give Ngannou any shot. We didn't even want to cover it on air. We did for a little bit, and my goodness, we did not expect what we saw. So let's get into that.
Bro, first off, I'm doing good. You know what I mean? I'm happy to be here. Episode 12. People are still fucking with us. How you doing today, Jack?
Man, I'm doing good. I got no complaints. We're here. So we're here. We're healthy. So everything's good.
That's damn right. You understand? Now let's get into this bullshit. Look, I saw a quote that said this was a cash grab for everybody but Ngannou. And we all thought the same shit, right? We said it on air. I even went on, the Monday show with the shop, talking with the guys, and I said, look, it looked like the only person who took this fight serious was Ngannou. Like, he was the only person who said, yeah, this is a real fight. I'm really trying to win this. Fury looked like he showed up and said, well, I should just be able to beat this dude on just natural talent alone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it looked like he was drinking beer before the fucking fight. That's how serious he wasn't taking it. And then he fucked around and found out. and Ngannou hits hard as shit. And he's got probably, I wouldn't say granite, but pretty fucking strong chin. He was eating up every punch that landed against him, and he was throwing hay every time he was swinging. So, for anybody who's a fan of boxing, like a real fan of boxing, he looked comfortable. Like, he didn't look like an MMA fighter boxing. He looked like a boxer. You know what I mean? If you didn't know who the hell these people were, and you were watching that was your first boxing match, you'd have just thought it was two heavyweights going at it. I was very impressed when Ngannou. I will say this: I do think that part of that was that Fury took it for what we all took it as. He thought he was just going to steamroll this dude. This dude's a novice. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Come to find out, Ngannou had been boxing in his childhood before he immigrated, and then got into MMA. So, this dude knows, he had the basic mechanics at least. And he showed up and showed out. This was his Super Bowl, right? And he looked comfortable enough for me. I mean, when you go in against the guy, right? We talk about this off air. We've mentioned it several times. When you go against the guy in the heavyweight division, and you show up and show out like that, win, lose, or draw, that's a win for you. You know what I mean? These MMA people, we ain't gonna be able to stand these motherfuckers for the next year until somebody shut them up. So that's what I saw, bro. I got to get your thoughts on this, man, because I damn near spit my soda out watching that knockdown. I said, son of a bitch.
Yeah, and Ngannou seemed comfortable from the opening round, but I guess, naive to think that it was going to be a competitive fight. I mean, none of us thought that it would ever going to be, even like we thought it was going to be maybe like Floyd did with McGregor, kind of carry him for a bit, let him gas out, and then get to him. But I think when he landed that knockdown, I still thought in the moment that Fury was maybe more messing around. But I think as soon as you seen the look in his eyes kind of got wide, and he was kind of just had that holy shit moment. I realized, like, damn, like we have a real fight on our hands. I do want to first of all just give Ngannou all the damn credit in the world. I mean, we counted him out. Not just us. Everybody in the boxing community counted him out. I've been a big fan of his in MMA coming along. He left the UFC. A lot of people kind of shit on him for it, which is funny because those are the same people who are now hyping him up, even though they weren't fans back then. But at the end of the day, he made the right decision. He hit an absolute home run coming over to boxing. The fact that we're still talking about him now, and we're going to keep talking about him in some of these other fights, so we could see he gets all the credit in the world. But now to Tyson Fury. I mean, when's the last time, or have we even seen a champion, a single fighter, reigning champion, undefeated, the best guy in their weight class, embarrass the sport as much as we saw Tyson Fury embarrass the sport last week? I mean, as you said, he came in. He's always came in heavy, but he came in really heavy this time. I think he kind of bought into his own hype where all of us or all these people were out here saying that he doesn't have to train for the fight. It's easy work. He can hop off the couch. And I think he believed that too. He believed it so much that that's exactly what he did. And I do think I see Bean saying that Francis is 1-0 in his book. Fury and Usyk, both questionable victories. That's a very fair point. Felix, what's going on? Felix, what's going on? Jesus also. But Bean's comment says Francis is 1-0. I will say, I think you said the same thing, Nibs, that I actually did score the fight for Tyson Fury. A close fight, competitive fight. I did think he won. But that's the definition of a guy winning the fight but losing the war. I mean, Ngannou might have lost the fight. But if you're an MMA fan, if you're just a fan of his, I don't think you even cared what those scorecards said. I think him just going to the decision and fighting the way he did was more than enough for those guys. And I just think that Fury was just, I think by the time, and even Jesus says it was a money grab for Fury and Francis. That's true. And it ended up being for Francis, he didn't treat it like a money grab, though. He treated it like Nibs was saying, like a real fight. He was in his training camp. There's been rumors that Fury had a 12-week training camp. Well, was he just walking in the gym and shadowboxing for 12 weeks? Like, clearly he wasn't bro, let's be real. He wasn't having a real training camp. When we talked about Fury last week, one of the things I had said is that the version of Fury from that second Deontay Wilder fight, when he bulked up in weight, but he didn't look fat at all. He looked big and strong, and he was just, I don't think we'll see that version of Fury again, because he said he went through hell in that training camp, and I'm not sure he's going to want to put himself through that. That's exactly what we saw in this fight. I think we saw him just kind of thought it was a cherry pick, and we all thought it was, and it ended up being a cherry pick gone wrong, and he ended up having a close fight, a black guy, and now I guess that Usyk fight is kind of up in the air. So what do you think about the Usyk fight? Do you think that is, they're talking about it now for, I think, February, March, something like that. Is that a fight do you even want to see right now? Would you rather see Fury run it? Because for me, I don't think we would see it, but the only way to kind of fix this is to have Fury just rematch Ngannou and just annihilate him, take him seriously, and kind of really get him out of there. Who knows if we will see that? What are your thoughts on just all those things right there?
I don't know if Fury wants to see that. Mm-hmm. And the thing you got to think about is if it was that close the first time, yeah, Fury gets to go back in and get back on his shit, but so does Ngannou, right? The one thing I'll say about this is, and you touched on this, and I want to, before I get into the Usyk bit, is when Floyd Mayweather fought McGregor, right? It was different. McGregor was coming in, he was fighting the guy, the GOAT, right? Basically, at that time. The thing with Floyd, though, people who know Floyd or you live in Vegas or have ever been to his gym can attest to this. We're talking about a guy who never is not ready. Like Floyd trains even now when he's doing these exhibitions. You rarely see him out of shape, right? Especially back then when he was still fighting. Floyd was, always in the gym no matter what, no matter who his opponent was. His training was the same. Fury is different. He's a gypsy. The bro, you know what I'm saying? He's got natural ability, natural talent. He already admits to, fucking around more than he should, right? I think he fucked around way too much for the Ngannou fight. Didn't take it nearly as seriously. We saw that, you saw the difference between him in the first Wilder fight and the second Wilder fight. What saved, Fury that first time out, he's got an unbelievable chin, right? Second time around, he puts in that work, and Wilder doesn't have a chance. So I think what we're looking at here is a difference between what Wilder did as opposed to how good his opponent was. So I think that, yeah, even though Ngannou was very impressive, you got to look at the fact that, hey, Fury didn't train the way he was supposed to. I think he doesn't. And again, Ngannou's a big dude. He's a much thicker base person. He's got no neck. You can't weigh on him like you did Deontay, right? Deontay's got chicken legs. He's barely 230. You know what I mean? And the damn near the same height as Tyson is. And Ngannou looks like he should be in the NFL. So I think that all those things considered, you see a different version of Tyson Fury and the Usyk fight. It's still a fight I want to see. It's the fight we need for the heavyweight division. Bring some clarity, get that one guy, and we go from there, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
beans.
crazy.
Beans, that's what he says.
Yeah. First of all, I want to shout out Mark Nash TV. Appreciate you, my guy. Thank you for tuning in as always. Dean, we got Felix, and yeah, little technical difficulties. I'm not sure what was going on. My internet cut out, but I'm back real quick. So we got to the count of 8, but we got up just like Tyson Fury did. So no worries about that. We will, no controversy by the end. We will make this a dub for sure. But yeah, even a Bream brought up a great point, as you did too, just the clinching, just having a guy the same size as him. And also Ngannou being from MMA, I think it helped him out with the clinch work, because you saw when he tried to lean on him, Ngannou was just shooting that uppercut as soon as he did too. So I think that's something they kind of game planned for. And it shows that they didn't come in just looking for one shot either. They came in with a real game plan, and they were anticipating those kind of things. So I want to give his coach, Dewey Cooper, a ton of credit. Mike Tyson for helping him out, a lot of credit. So I think that those guys, I mean, they did a world with Ngannou. And I think, as you said, this is only his first fight still. So he will, even if I think he would lose to whoever he fights next, because they'll take him seriously, I got to give him credit because he will come back a much better fighter because of that too. But I want to make one comparison for Tyson Fury. I saw it floating around on Twitter, but I thought of it first, so I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna say it, act like it was my own, because I thought of it first right after the fight. Reminds me of Teofimo Lopez a bit. When they're at their highs are as high as everybody's highs in the sport. Fury against Wilder, Teofimo against Josh Taylor, and against Lomachenko. But when they don't fight the guys like Fury, we already saw this with Fury with Otto Wallin before. So we've seen it in other fights. We saw it earlier in his career with John McDermott, other guys, Steve Cunningham when he was dropped. They kind of just don't get the fights that they don't get up for. They really don't get up for, and they're almost not even the same guys. So that was something that I thought of immediately as two guys who, when they're at their best and they're absolutely had 100% of a training camp, they're almost impossible to beat. Problem is, in between those things, we see, like we saw with Teofimo with Kambosos or Tyson Fury last weekend, they sleep on a guy, they get in some trouble, and I think that goes into what we said, just buying into their hype a bit and just not realizing who they have in front of them.
And the problem for Fury is this: he's a heavyweight. Teofimo, was fighting at 140 pounds, came up from 135. So you can kind of afford to take your foot off the gas, so to speak, right, against maybe a couple of opponents, because you ain't got to worry so much about that one punch putting you on your ass like Ngannou did against Fury, right? Fury got lazy. Let's call it what it is. He got lazy, he got sloppy, and he got caught. And then he was like, holy shit, this guy can actually bang a little bit. Let me get off my ass and actually fight. Well,
yep. I think Ray breaks
in the ring to get ready. You're already there. So
yeah, Ray kind of echoing the same points I said, just they need motivation and things like that for sure. We get another comment saying Fury's already had vulnerabilities, but that just comes down to the fact that all heavyweights can be hurt by other heavyweights. That's a fact. We saw Jared Anderson, Charles Martin. We see it with every heavyweight fight, and that's why we'll get into it. I'll ask you in a second, but so Fury carried Francis so Francis can get more fights and make money. I think that might have been his plan. I think once he got in there and got hit, I don't think he was carrying anything. I think the only thing he was carrying was himself to make sure he didn't hit the damn canvas again, I think, honestly. But that could have been the game plan at first to kind of get some rounds in. But I think as soon as he got hit in the third round, I think everything, and even in the second round, I think everything kind of changed for that. But I think for the MMA fans, this kind of makes up for all the losses that they've had in boxing. We've seen it's not like we've never seen guys swap over before. Anderson Silva beat what was left of Chavez Jr. We talked last week about how Ray Mercer went out and knocked out Tim Sylvia. Holly Holm, who was a boxer, went over there and knocked out Ronda Rousey. So we've seen the crossover before. I think it just shocked everyone because Tyson Fury was looked at, as Ray said, as an unbeatable guy who was basically too good for everybody else. Even the Usyk fight, a lot of people thought it was a foregone conclusion that Fury would win. I thought that for a while, and I might have to rethink that, even though I'd still probably pick Fury. But do you think this leads to us seeing more of these MMA fights? Do you think we might see a Sean O'Malley against a Tank Davis now? Do we see a Sean Strickland from MMA kind of come over? And do you think that they could have any success? Because to me, I think that Francis it was a perfect storm for him. He got a guy who was sleeping on him. And at the heavyweight division, one punch can change everything. The lower you go down in weight, I think the wider the skill gap would be for those guys. And it would be harder. And I just don't think there's any chance of Sean O'Malley or these guys would be able to beat a Tank Davis or anything like that. But that being said, do you think that we do see more of these fights? Do you think that this is something that might never go? I think we were at the point, if Fury had wiped out Ngannou, I think these things would have finally went away. But I think the doors might have opened up, and we might see these for a long time going forward. Now, what you think?
Unfortunately, yeah, it's probably going to pick up. But I do credit McGregor for that, right? Because of how much money he made coming over and fighting Floyd. Now, not everybody's Floyd Mayweather, so you're not going to get $100 million every time you come over here, right? But you look at, you know, Conor McGregor hasn't fought since Floyd, right? And he's living the high life. Dude bought a motherfucking Lamborghini yacht. So he's living the high life off of what he came over and made in boxing. All those other MMA guys, including Francis, said, well, holy shit, look at Nate Diaz. You know what I mean? He wanted to come over. He had been begging, to come over for years, right? And finally got out of his contract and was able to do it. And Ngannou wanted to do it for years. They finally let him out of his contract. Now he can do it. I think the only reason the UFC let McGregor do it is because of how big a star he is. But you look at Francis Ngannou, people are going to look to his success and go, okay, I can do that too. The one thing, again, we just talked about, you have to take into consideration Francis Ngannou is a heavyweight, and he has bricks in both his hands, legitimate bricks in both his hands. Not everybody's a heavyweight. If you want to try yourself against Tank Davis, good luck. You know what I mean? Because the boy, pound for pound, is probably one of the heaviest hitters in boxing. And, not everybody is Francis Ngannou. So, unfortunately, yeah, I do think it's going to increase because people will look to that success, but they'll also look to the money that him and Conor have made. And, they're going to come over here and get their asses whipped.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. Even some of these things that you guys saying with Jesus and Ray, even Ray said an MMA guy going to cruiser that would be an interesting thing, honestly. I think if you had, let's say, Alex Pereira, someone, for example, a UFC guy, a kickboxer who was a Glory kickboxer before it came over, it'd be interesting to see him mix it up with some of those guys at cruiserweight, especially where they're looking for a big star. That could be a big thing to cross over. But exactly what you had said. If you have, let's say, Sean Strickland or Conor McGregor try to fight a Canelo, or Sean O'Malley fights a Tank Davis, we're at the point now where, one, they'd have no chance anyways because these guys, like you said, the skill gap is different, as we were saying, as you go down in weight. But two, I think these guys looked and saw what happened with Fury, and they're thinking, there's no way I'm going to let this happen to me. Like, you guys are telling me, if Tank Davis fights Sean O'Malley, you think he's really going to kind of half-ass it in camp? No, he would be coming in to take that dude's head off. Canelo would do the same exact thing any of these guys would do. Bean was saying even Izzy and Canelo, for example. Izzy's very long, very talented kickboxer. But Canelo would go in there with the mindset of, okay, I'm not coming to embarrass the sport. I'm coming to make a damn statement. And I think that's exactly what he would do.
I think the only thing, if you were in Sean O'Malley's camp, right? Because this is actually, you brought it up, and it's actually, Sean O'Malley's been calling for Tank Davis. I get, I think Sean fights at like 135, 140, something like that.
130, 135, yep.
He does? Okay. So, yeah, he's in the same weight class, but he's 5'11". Tank is, 5'6" with his shoes on. So, the only thing, if I were in his corner, I'd be like, well, you bigger than him. You can do this. The size don't mean shit.
No. And they don't realize that would actually end up hurting them, if anything. Like you were saying, that would end up being...
Tank's been fighting bigger dudes his whole career, bro. If you look at it, his toughest fight was actually against somebody shorter than him. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't used to it. He'd eat Sean O'Malley's ass up for lunch, bro. And, if you look at, yes, Sean O'Malley has 17 wins, 12 knockouts, right? Those are MMA knockouts. You are not fighting boxers. Boxers who take punches for a living, nothing but punches. These guys aren't wrestling with you. They're not getting tired holding on to your heel trying to turn it or nothing like that. These are dudes who just take punches for a living. I guarantee you everybody would be in for a rude awakening if Sean O'Malley comes over and fights Tank. You can't fight the guy and then expect to win every time. It's just not going to happen, bro. I'll say this, though. If he does it right, like if they let him come over, which they won't, and fight a couple lower level guys and see where his skills are at, then maybe we can see. But nah, he's gonna come over and fuck around and find out real quick, just like Ryan Garcia did that there's levels to this game for a reason, bro. Isn't Ryan Garcia like 5'10", some shit like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if Tank beat Barrios, bro, he's beating Sean O'Malley. They'll just put it at that at the end of the day. Like,
bro, Barrios just beat the shit out of Ugas. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And Ryan's been boxing his whole career. As much as he's not on Tank's level, you look at his measurables, you go, he should be able to give Tank some kind of problems. That was probably Tank's easiest fight.
Yeah, because even Ryan gets a lot of Ryan gets a lot of slack, but Ryan's became, I think, even an underrated fighter. But we got Real Ray in here doing some real matchmaking, so I'll put it up to you first. What do you think about this? Do you think Sean O'Malley could beat your boy Rolly Romero if they were to fight?
Your son just told me he hates black people.
What? Hold on.
No. I can answer this first if you want me to, then. But unfortunately, I do not think that I don't think Sean O'Malley would beat Rolly. That'd be a hell of a sell for a fight. Even imagine, like, now Ray, Real Ray, I got a fight for you, honestly. What about Sean O'Malley, Adrian Broner? Talk about a fight that they'd sell the hell out of. Maybe that's more on his lane. Maybe if he sleeps on him a bit. Maybe O'Malley could get AB at this point, but I think that Rolly would. He's too awkward. He hits too hard. I think he'd probably catch him at some point. Handful of boxing review. No, that's a fair point. I think we're talking about taller guys, but no, I think what you're saying is true too. Not that even I think people kind of over criticize Tank's resume. I mean, I think that's fair at times because he hasn't had the fights we want. But I mean, Santa Cruz was a smaller guy who was moving up in weight, and even some other guys too. But I think we were just talking about that he's already fought the taller guys. So if you look at a guy like O'Malley, that the taller guys aren't the guys that give Tank's problem. Like Nip said, it's the smaller guys like Isak Cruz, who was able to, because Tank was punching down. It's a lot harder because he's already used to punching up. And like Bean said,
I mean height, not girth.
Yeah. And then we got
to answer your question, no. Sean O'Malley doesn't beat any of those guys. Sorry.
Yeah, so we got
a phone call when that came. Sorry.
Again. We got Bean saying O'Malley wouldn't even beat Carmel Moten. No, I don't think he would. And that's not even a crazy thing to say. I just think that that's a legit boxer who's taken it. That would be a crazy fight because Carmel's like 5'4", 5'3", so it would be crazy to look at. Exactly. We got Real Ray saying, what you think about this, though? I'll throw it to you because one I posed to Ray was, me and Rolly might be going too far. What about AB at this point? Adrian Broner, Sean O'Malley. You give O'Malley a chance if AB's kind of sleeping on him and does the whole Tyson Fury kind of thing. I think that's the one. If you're going to look for a name guy to beat, that might be. No, I'm not even saying he beats him. I think he'd have a decent chance if Broner's kind of fucking around and doesn't take it seriously, kind of like Fury did in Ngannou.
I give you a shot against AB at this point, bro. and that's no disrespect. I'm saying, like, AB is so far from what he once was that actually, Ray, you found the one. You found the one matchup where O'Malley might actually have a chance of winning, or at least looking good. Yeah. Because AB is what, 5'6", 5'7" himself. He's not a tall kid. And he's fighting with beer bellies now. Like he's not, he's not who he once was, bro. And his fall has been hard. Like I've been on record of saying this before. To me, AB is the biggest waste of natural talent in the last 20 years. When you look at him, naturally, his talent level is through the fucking roof. His work ethic is the shittiest I've ever seen. His work ethic might be worse than Junior's. Like, that's how bad it is. So when you look at that, and then you couple it with all the outside shit, AB is nowhere near the boxer he used to be. So, I said all that to say O'Malley might actually have a shot against him. I would still, if I was a betting man, I'd probably still take AB to like pull out the win, like a decision or something like that. But if he gets clipped, he's proven to not have the best chin in the world. When he fights serious fighters. So we'll see.
Yeah. And Ray's giving me credit. I was going to say that I give him credit for the pick, but I was the one who actually mentioned that fight because I knew that was a fight that Ray would like. And to your point, though, too, I am a betting man, and I would stay the hell away from that fight, though, bro. I'm not putting one more cent on Adrian Broner for the rest of my life. You just can't. I mean, bro, he should win that fight. But as you're saying, we can't even sit up here and say that he would definitely win that fight. So I think that shows enough of just kind of what we feel.
That's a 50-50.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's a 50-50 right there.
Yeah. Last
And that
thing.
was you, Jack? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
that's that catch and counter shit.
Yep. So Ray saying disagree. AB always been AB. He was just bigger than the guys when he started. You can say I think that he was also a guy who ate his way out of like the 130s and the 135. So he might have looked like the bigger guy there. I also just think the lifestyle has changed a lot from him. That even, he just doesn't let his damn hands go anymore. And I know that people always say that's a cliche thing you can always say with Broner. Not that he was always ever threw 100 punches around, but I think his style is just, as you said, it's almost like with every single fight, he's gotten further and further away from the Broner we know. And yeah, he did. What was the guy's name? If I don't know an opponent's name, that's how you know it's bad. But hold on, I got it. Bill Hutchinson, I think, was the name of the guy who was a lawyer.
Nice.
Yep. So that's how you know it's bad. If I get a reach back there to try to find it, that's how you know it's a rough one. But
bro, if you look at it, and I'm not trying to argue the point, but seriously, when you look at pre-Maidana Broner and post-Maidana Broner, those are two totally different fighters. And I think it had everything. And then that's also when he started to get into a lot of that extra shit. Now, I know he was doing that shit before, but it got worse. So I don't know what happened, after that fight that made him. But if you look at pre-Maidana and post-Maidana, two totally different ABs. He hasn't been the same since.
That's a fact. And someone like me who was young, where I wasn't really watching Broner on the rise, it's crazy for me to go back and watch his fights, to think, like, even watch the DeMarco fights or some of those other fights and think, damn, like that was like what happened to that guy almost. And it is a shame. And it's even crazy the fact that we throw him in here in the mix of fight an MMA fighter. We're not even picking him to beat the MMA fighter. So that shows how a guy who was once on a pound for pound list, it's not like he's 40 years old now. He's still like 33, 34, somewhere in there years old.
He should beat O'Malley, but but you know what I mean? So yeah, you're right, man. That would be a good 50-50 fight. That actually would be way better. I think Rolly would knock O'Malley out because Rolly's got legit power. He's not. That's one thing you can give Rolly. He hits really fucking hard. Even Tank had to attest to that. You saw Tank make adjustments after he got touched up. By Rolly's punch. He was like, "Oh, this." Even he had to acknowledge it in his post fight. Hey, yeah, this guy hits hard as shit. And I think Rolly has decent enough skills to get past O'Malley. I think O'Malley hits hard for an MMA fighter.
Yeah. Real quick now, before we just mention the undercard fights, for Francis Ngannou, clearly everyone wants to know kind of what's coming next for him. But the two names that have been thrown out there are Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Now, here we go again. We did this before, but I swear I'm not giving him any chance to beat either one of those guys, because I just think that they saw what happened in the Fury fight, and they know that they would take it serious, and they know that the kind of statement they would make if they do knock him out, or if they do just kind of really, really expose him. But it's interesting because Ngannou will be a better fighter than he was even the last time out. But what do you think? Do you give him any chance, or do you think? And I'll put it this way: is a Wilder and Ngannou fight the fight that we need to save and to make people forget about what the hell we saw happen last weekend? And I think Joshua would beat him too, but I think Wilder is the perfect kind of one for Xbox if he has to say, "Listen, guys, we told you so. He had a good fight, but let's settle down a little bit." Because there's people out there picking him, Ariel Helwani, a bunch of guys saying he beat Wilder, and that's when it gets into. I blame Fury more than I blame them for that, because it's insane. But they look at that, they don't know as much as us, and they say, well, if Ngannou had a close fight with Fury who knocked out Wilder, he could beat him. But let's be real. So what you think on that?
Bro, those are the same people that say Ngannou hits harder than Deontay Wilder. And I've said this a million times. We've all said it here. I believe it's a consensus within the ITR family. Deontay Wilder is the hardest hitting heavyweight I've ever seen with my own two eyes, bro. Before I was born and before I really started watching boxing, I can't account for it. But everything that I've seen, Deontay Wilder hits the hardest. You can audibly hear his punches like you're watching a movie. Like you watch his fight live when he knocked out Dominique Brazil, you heard that punch, right? I wasn't even looking at the screen at the time, which pissed me off. My back was to the TV and I heard the punch. I had to turn around like, holy shit, what was that? So Ngannou, yes, he does hit hard, and Fury found that out. But why was he able to touch up Fury? Because Fury wasn't taking him serious. Deontay Wilder would take that very serious, right? Because he's on his comeback shit. Deontay Wilder is probably as focused as any boxer in the division right now. He lands one punch on Ngannou. Ngannou's going to find out real quick. There's a difference between Tyson Fury's right hand and Wilder's right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody finds that out. You know what I'm saying? The only motherfucker on planet Earth to actually get up and stay up from a Deontay Wilder punch is, the guy who just fought him, Fury. So people can say that shit all they want to. That would be damn near criminal to make that fight at this point in Ngannou's career. Now I'll say this: having watched Ngannou, if he gets like a couple of fights under his belt, though, that might be an interesting fight later on.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. Right now, no.
Yeah.
The Joshua fight is actually a much more intriguing fight for me because I'm like, well, his first fight out for him to be that okay. I mean, you put him in with Joshua, I wouldn't be mad at it. Should Joshua beat him? Yes, but you just think about the numbers that would do. Like, especially overseas, they pick a stadium, they sell it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I know that Eddie Hearn's talked about even having that fight in Africa potentially, which I think would be a pretty cool thing. I know that Malik Scott has talked. So let's be real. I think any heavyweight who's out there right now, they're looking to fight Francis Ngannou because they look at it as a huge paycheck, a huge mega fight for a fight that they think they could win very easily.
As they should.
Yeah, even being to say this is a guy who, imagine Zhilei Zhang against Francis Ngannou in China, like just the event that would be. And I think that Zhang's another guy who I think he would, with that left hand, with the movement he does and the education he has, I think he would be able to tear Francis apart. But I think with Francis's, just with how he performed in the last fight, even if we're picking him to lose against any of these guys, I think he's at least earned the right to step in the ring with those guys and maybe prove us wrong. Let's be real. I think that was an anomaly, what we saw 1 in a million years, the combination of him having a fantastic night and Fury just being so out of shape and not taking him seriously and doing all the things that we had already spoke on. But he's earned the right at this point to fight one of those other guys. And hey, bro, if he were to beat one of those other guys, my hat goes off to him, and I don't think I could pick against him ever again.
And you talked about conditioning. Francis Ngannou was not sucking wind at the end of that 10th round.
No.
We saw what happened with McGregor by like the 6th, 7th round. He was done. You know what I mean? He was ready for the oxygen tank.
Yeah.
Ngannou looked like he could have went a 12-round fight. You know what I'm saying? And he wasn't sucking wind. His punches still had just as much steam on him as they did earlier in the fight. He was there, bro. Like he wasn't like, I'm so gassed I can barely throw a punch type shit. So I will say that to me, that was the most impressive thing was that, hey, dude is still there in 10 rounds. He's not. I expected him to gas out.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone did. Yeah.
I mean, MMA fights are what, 5 minutes?
5-minute rounds. The thing with him is he has some wrestling background too, and anyone who's ever wrestled, which I haven't, but I know people who have, and they say just the conditioning you need to do to be able to wrestle, especially 5-minute rounds, you got to be in fantastic shape. We saw him when he fought Ciryl Gane, Ciryl Gane was the kickboxer up on his toes, and Ngannou actually wrestled him and held him down to win that fight. So I think he showed in that fight. It's got to translate to boxing, like you said. I think part of it was, I think with McGregor, he seemed confident, but I think the nerves, once you get in there a little bit, could have got to him. And Ngannou just seemed so focused, so prepared, and so comfortable in there that I don't think he ever had those kind of nerves to zap his gas tank at all either. Because that's a lot of it for these guys. The nerves is kind of what can zap your gas tank also. What do you think about Ray's comment here? Because, bro, I can't disagree with that at all. It's crazy to say, but is there any shot that Wilder and Ngannou isn't a way bigger fight, or even Joshua Ngannou, than Fury and Usyk right now? Which seems crazy to say, but bro, that is 100% facts, I think.
Bro, you could make that fight today. Like, you could make Wilder and Ngannou, and then make Fury and Usyk has already been signed, so they could sell us tomorrow. Hey, we're doing the Fury Usyk fight in February. The Wilder and Ngannou fight, we're doing that in August, right? The Ngannou fight sells out before the Usyk Fury fight. And he's right. I mean, blockbuster, people tuning in. it's big bucks, right? That's why these guys are coming over and doing it. And then you take into consideration that Ngannou, again, he accounted for himself well. He did put the MMA, he put a chip in the MMA column, right? Because even though he didn't win the fight, like you said, he won the war because now more MMA fighters are going to be encouraged to come over. And in addition to that, he looked ready, bro. Like he looked. There's an argument to be made that he won that fucking fight.
Yeah.
As crazy as that. Think about that, bro.
Yeah.
There's an
That's
argument
insane.
to be made that this dude beat the heavyweight champ of the world in his first fucking fight. And I will say this: all these boxers lining up to get that easy money, to get that big paycheck, you better be ready because Ngannou is going to be. He's not like I will say this: Ngannou proved something to me, and I got more respect for him than I had before. He's ready. Like he takes that fight game shit serious. He's not in there to play. He's in there trying to build a legacy. So if you're gonna come in there against him and think, oh well, I can just get me an easy bag, you better be on your shit. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if he touches up Anthony Joshua like he did with Fury, Anthony Joshua ain't got half the chin Fury got. So, if you're gonna come in there, you better be on your shit.
Yeah, like they say, sometimes shit ain't always as sweet as it seems to be, and clearly that was the case last weekend. And even the thing with, as you said, with Ngannou is that this was also his first ever professional boxing match. Think about how much better he's going to be for his second fight, for his third fight, for his fourth fight. And though it might be better for him to take a few developmental fights, he's 38 years old. So I think he does have to, just like any of these MMA guys, if you're going into boxing, instead of avoiding, let's say he fought like a Dillian White and then never lost to him because White took him seriously, then you fumbled the bag for those huge fights later on. So I think any of these MMA guys coming in, even if it's not for their best chance to win, you got to just take the big fights right away because you never want to slip out on a banana peel. Kind of like the way Tyson Fury almost did and almost lost the Usyk fight because of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at Nate Diaz, right? Never fought a professional fight in his life. He comes in and, no matter what you think of him, Jake Paul is one of the biggest stars of the sport. Like it or not, he generates a shitload of money, right? So what do? I'm not going to go fight one of these legit-ass boxers that can take my fucking head off. I'm going to fight a guy who's, at the beginning of his career too. He's a big name. I can get a shitload of money, right? That's the formula. If you can. But there's only one Jake Paul. So you can, what is everybody going to come over here and fight him for a bag? No. You got those heavyweights in it. And a lot of these MMA guys legitimately think they can win. So if you're of that cloth and you're not just trying to get a bag and go to the Jake Paul route, you really think you can step in here with these guys and win. Why not fight the big names? Why not fight the Wilders, the Joshuas, the Usyk? Line up. And I'm not mad at them for taking it.
Yeah, and even for all the things we had said before, just the weight classes and Ngannou punching hard, even if for these other MMA guys, it's a false sense of confidence because it ain't going to be the same story for them. They're all looking at it. Sean O'Malley's probably watching. Sean Strickland's watching. Adesanya's watching. Pereira's watching. They're all watching and sitting there and saying, I could do the same thing too. I'm sure Sean O'Malley is actually really sitting there. Like, we know Tank would take his head off, but he's probably sitting there thinking, I could outbox Gervonta Davis. I could use my length. I could use my jab, stick on the outside, and those kind of things. Borderline crazy to think that, but we also thought it was borderline crazy for Ngannou to even step in the ring with Fury last week, and we saw how that happened. So I don't think we see a repeat of this. If we do, I will give Ngannou all the credit in the world. But I will say I'm interested to see his next fight, and I think that it makes any fight he's in is a huge fight because the whole MMA community is now following him. So you just got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people interested in every single fight that he has. And I do think that is the one thing that is beneficial for the sport, I think, going forward.
I mean, more fans, more people watching. I'm never against that, right? That's that's never been my biggest or even a gripe that I have with the Paul machine, right? It's never been, hey, these guys affecting the sport. It's the people considering them legitimate contenders against, legitimate fighters. So yeah, I mean, if it can bring more eyes to the sport, why wouldn't we be okay with that? You know what I mean? Like you said, Francis Ngannou brought fans to the sport who probably never even watched boxing before or tuned in every now and again, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So maybe on a night that ESPN had a boxing card in a UFC card, they tune in between that or something like that, right? Now people are going, hey, let me see what's next with this. So, salute the Backyard Prophet. We appreciate you checking us out, catching counter. And you look at that and you go, okay, bet, give me more of that, because the more fans that watch this sport, the more money this generates for all the fighters, not just the superstars.
Yeah, no, exactly. We got Jesus making a comment here. These MMA guys want to make easy money on their likeness and go through the process. And that's the thing, it's also the pay increase that they would make. I know when Francis Ngannou was fighting for the UFC heavyweight championship of the world, the undisputed championship of the world in MMA, or at least for the UFC, because I wouldn't say undisputed because we got other organizations out there. He was guaranteed, I think maybe it's $500,000 or $600,000. And the fact that he's looking there and he made $20 million to fight Tyson Fury, he'll make another $20 million to fight these other guys. Like Sean O'Malley made, I think he was guaranteed less, but with pay-per-views, these guys are probably making maybe $1 million or $2 million at the max. Well, Sean O'Malley could fight Tank Davis and he'd make $20 million. So it just shows the difference of the gap. And that's why I don't blame these guys at all. And I see what Jesus was saying, O'Malley, Francis, build yourself up, not easy money grabs. So I think you're saying start from the bottom. My problem with that, Jesus, is I think they got to be careful with fighting those guys, because if you fight a rough and tough guy who beats you before you get to the top, then you could lose out on those money grabs afterwards. But Nibs, did you see any? Did you? Oh, you're on mute real quick.
I said my problem with that comment is he's already fought the guy and damn near won.
Yeah,
most people you ask, and I'm talking legit boxing scores. Most people go, well, shit, So if he's already done that against the guy, why would he go backwards? If I were him, right? I get what you're saying, and we all say the same thing. I just got done saying it. Maybe fight some guys that are a little bit easier pickings. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe fight the Jared Andersons of the world. Maybe fight the Charles Martins of the world. Get yourself back into a position where you can win some notable fights, and then get in there with some of these bigger dudes, right? Problem is like you pointed out, Francis Ngannou is 38 years old, and he just put Tyson Fury through hell.
Yeah, and the problem is I think a guy like Charles Martin is a very good chance, and I would still pick Charles Martin to beat him. Even Jesus, this seems crazy too. And we agree, Jesus, that we thought, even our title says Tyson Fury won the fight, but Ngannou won the war. I did score the fight for Tyson Fury, so I thought he won. But I think the fact that we're even having a conversation, I mean, bro, if the fight had gone the way we thought it was going to last week, we wouldn't even have touched on it today. So the fact that we spent 40 minutes on this fight just shows how shock it is. And even Jesus, I think, Jesus, this is the problem with what you're saying. I agree with it. MMA guys, 100%, they're skipping the line. Guys like Frank Sanchez are sitting there saying, what the hell? Like, what do I have to do to get a big fight? I beat F.A. Ajagba, who we're going to talk about soon. I'm looking for these fights, but I would pick Richard Torres to still beat Ngannou. And Torres would have to be very careful. He hasn't fought anybody really since he's turned pro, but I think any of those guys, that's why we agree 100% for their development. That would be the best thing to take those fights. But what happens if he loses to Richard Torres? I'm just not. Then I think you're at a point where nobody would want to see the Wilder fights and the Joshua fights. And I think that's the problem. And I agree 100%. It was basically a moral victory for Ngannou and the MMA fans. That's what it was at the end of the day, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you look at stars that have transferred over, right? The reason Brock Lesnar had a successful MMA career is because he won, right? If you win, people will continue to pay to watch it. There was another wrestler, I forget what his name was. He came over way later in his career, and he tried it, and he got his ass whooped every time. Well, guess what? People are going to stop paying for the novelty, because you're not winning. So they're like, well, yeah, it's cool to see that guy in there, but I'm not paying for that. So, you have to be good enough, right? And you have to win these fights, unless they're super big fights and you're super competitive. Like, I would pay to watch Ngannou fight Jared Anderson. I would pay to watch it. I'd pay to watch him fight pretty much anybody. Wilder, Joshua. Why? Because he did such a good job in his loss to the number one guy.
Yeah, Backyard Prophet, 100%. I think this is what we were even saying too, and this is something I'll go on whenever you see a guy who was a huge underdog like Ngannou was, sometimes they get too much credit on the scorecards. You see it even in big fights all the time too. Because he was such an underdog, I think any close rounds. First of all, I think a lot of the people saying that Ngannou won, I don't even think they probably even scored it round by round. I think they just saw that he got the knockdown and that Fury had marks on his eyes, and that was enough for them, which we know, as you said, for casuals and non-fans, that's enough for them. For us, we know that on a round-by-round basis that Fury probably still close and competitive, but I thought he nicked enough rounds to win. But even on that, if someone did score round by round, I think because if they thought so lowly of Ngannou that if he does anything in these rounds, they're bound to give him credit for him and give him these rounds. A 50-50 round that I think Fury might have edged out still, they're probably automatically giving to Ngannou just because they thought he had no shot in hell of even winning a round, never mind a few rounds. So I think that's where the scoring comes from it. Then I was going to say it when Felix was saying it too, but I don't know if it was CM Punk you were mentioning because I know he fought in the UFC and that did not go too well. So that's probably exactly who you were talking about.
That's the guy. That's the guy.
Yeah. And then we got Ajagba holds the record for the fastest knockout ever. Yeah, that was against your boy Curtis Harper. As we all know, the famous fight. TKO as soon as the bell rang. We'll get into FA in a little bit. As you said, Brock took it serious and was good enough to win 100%. Brock was also he was also like Ngannou, a freak of athletes too, where he played college football, was in camp with the Vikings, did WWE, transferred to UFC. So like those guys, kind of like Ngannou, when you're an A+ level athlete at that size, you get more leeway in these kind of things. But before we go over to one of the fights of the year, especially the round of the year and the O'Shaquie Foster fight, did you see any of this undercard? Did you see the results at all? Because it was actually a pretty decent undercard. We had some heavyweight fights. I'm not sure if you saw any of it. If not, I could touch on it real quick before we move on.
Be honest with you, I only put on the main event. I'm not gonna sit up here and try to lie and say I watched the whole card. I did not, and I was late turning. The fucked up thing is I was late turning on the main event, but they had so much pre-show shit that I was actually on time. So
you got to see a concert and everything, yeah. Yeah, little baby out there.
Like I was 20 minutes late getting to the house to turn on the fight. And when I turned it on, they were doing the introductions. I was like, "Oh shit, okay."
Yeah, here we go.
So,
So on the undercard, we had Joseph Parker fought Simon Keane. He picked up a third-round knockout with an undercard. I'd like to see Joseph Parker in with like a Jared Anderson. I think that's the perfect next step for him. Fabio Wardley, David Adelaide. It was two undefeated guys. The fights you always want to see. A lot of beef in this buildup. I know they had a brawl at one of the press conferences, and Wardley got cut. I favored Wardley to win. I wasn't too sure, but he kind of really took it to David Adelaide, knocked him out in the 7th round, and really made a huge statement. I think showed as a guy who came from blue collar boxing. He got started late. He's still new to the sport. He showed he's got power and he's got underrated skills too. I'm not saying that he'll beat the top guys like even a Jared Anderson or a Jalalov or those guys, but I think he's someone who will be in fun fights. I think he's earned the right to be called a real contender at this point. Arslanbek Makhmudov also fought on the undercard. He got a first-round knockout over a junior, right? I had mentioned that fight last week, just saying that Makhmudov, he's a big, strong guy. He's got a lot of power. He's an awkward guy, but I just want to see him in with somebody who can give him at least some resistance. We saw him fight Carlos Takam last year, someone who also fought on this undercard. It was a tough fight for him. He ended up winning the fight, but Takam made it tough, made it rough on him, and really stole a few rounds in the fight that he was supposed to get wiped out in. So I think they're kind of being careful matching Makhmudov. At this point, I think that let me see his age, because he's only 18-0, but he's 34 years old. So at this point, kind of, I'd want to see them get the ball rolling. Whether they're saving him for Jared or someone like that, you might as well make that fight now before he loses to somebody else. So that was another fight. He got a win and kind of more what was a squash match. And then Martin Bakole picked up a win over Carlos Takam. I think he knocked Takam out with a body shot. I did not see that fight, but pretty damn good win from Martin Bakole. I know Takam's always been a tough guy, and he's never been a guy to just get wiped out too. So I think it was a really impressive win for Bakole. And Bakole is the guy who they actually Takam and Bakole both beat Tony Yoka recently. So I think that's kind of why they made that match. And Bakole is the kind of guy who just threw himself in the mix for another big fight. And I'd like to see him in with, even we wouldn't see it, but I think a Bakole versus the Francis Ngannou fight would be a fantastic fight. That it would be a great opportunity for Bakole. Problem is, Ngannou will look for those top guys, and Bakole will probably be left without a dance partner. But nonetheless, it was a pretty cool card. We saw some good, solid name guys in there have good performances. So for me, I thought that's all we were going to see, and I thought the main event was going to be a farce, but the main event ended up being one of the best fights on the damn card. So, but it was interesting, and it was a successful day of heavyweight boxing.
You know who? I know people were throwing Joseph Parker away because he got annihilated by Joe Joyce. Joseph Parker is still a guy. Like he's not a bum, right? He fought Joe Joyce, and yeah, we saw Joe Joyce get exposed by Zhang, right? Joe Joyce is, and I've said this before, and I don't want people to take it some kind of way, but he's a gatekeeper heavyweight. He's going to be one of those guys where if you can beat him, right, you're probably on the higher end of the heavyweight food chain. Joseph Parker's just below that, right? But he's still a guy. Like he's a former champ we're talking about. But it brought up a good idea, man. I said, well, you could throw Joe Joyce against Ngannou.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? People would show up to watch that. Now Joe Joyce mails his punches in, so Ngannou might actually be able to knock his ass out.
I was gonna say, shit, is that the fight we want to see? Because, bro, I mean, I'm not one to say Ngannou's gonna beat any of these guys, but goddamn, if there's one guy he would beat near the top of the division, that's the guy who he would beat right there. And he's in the perfect off the knockout loss. That would be the typical boxing thing where not the guys who have been winning, but the guy who just came off a loss would get rewarded with that fight. But I wouldn't lie to you and say I wouldn't be excited and I wouldn't want to watch that damn fight either, though. I'll tell you that.
Because if you're Ngannou, right, and if you're in Ngannou's camp, and if he's really taking this serious, if he's not just in this to get the money grab, he really wants to say, hey, look, no, I'm really gonna box, for a couple of years. You fight a dude to get like Joe Joyce and knock him out, then we're looking at you different.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're going, oh, wait a minute, hold up.
Yeah, that's a fact. But I think we spent more than enough time on that card. We gave Ngannou his fair share. So at the end of the day, we are excited to see Ngannou fight next. We give him all the credit in the world. We didn't think he would even win one round, never mind win a few rounds and have an argument to winning the damn fight. So hats off to him. He ended up making the best decision. He was kind of villainized for leaving the UFC, but he can stick a middle finger right now to the whole UFC and just say, you know what, I told you guys so. And at the end of the day, he did.
I did it. And the reason I did it is because the UFC doesn't pay their fighters shit. It doesn't give them benefits. It doesn't do anything for these cats. Look, people always villainize these dudes or think these dudes are stupid for wanting to jump ship out of the UFC. They're making more money elsewhere. At the end of the day, these motherfuckers got to feed their families. They're out here risking their lives. And a lot of these dudes are popular and poor. You know what I mean? Fuck that.
Yeah, but I'll even say, I'm not sure, but I would go on a limb and say there's a good chance he made more money in this fight than he did all of his UFC fights combined. And we've seen that with other guys, and we've seen that proven to be true. So I think that just speaks to the pay gap. And that's why these MMA guys, I don't blame them, even though we say they're crazy for switching over. Why the hell wouldn't you? If you're making $500K and you can turn that into $15 million? If any of us could do anything to turn $500K into $15 million, we'd be first in line and we'd be signing up to do whatever the hell that was for sure.
Bro, what's the saying? It's really hard to train, you know what I'm saying, in silk pajamas, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, and I keep going back to this. McGregor hasn't fought since, bro. He doesn't have to. Like, when you think about it, that money he made from the Floyd fight has set him and his family up for generations. He made generational wealth off of one fight. He'd been in the UFC for how long? And if he hadn't done that Floyd fight, he'd still be in the UFC fighting every couple of months just to keep the lights on. Fuck out of here with that.
Yeah, and even with him, as he has had some fights since then, it's only been a few sparingly. And like you said, he hasn't seemed like that same guy. He came back with a big win against Cowboy Cerrone, but since then, even Cowboy Cerrone is a guy that Conor McGregor at any point should be able to handle. We saw him take the 2 losses to Poirier. As you said, if he didn't have that money in the bank, I'm sure he'd be creeping back and he would have had some more fights in without a doubt. But let's move over now and give shine to somebody who had the performance of a lifetime, dare I say. O'Shaquie Foster, even the article that I wrote on ITR Boxing said just that he had everything against him in this fight. He had the promotion, he had the judges, he had the ring size, he had the crowd, he had the country as the defending champion, all those things against him. And he delivered just like a true champion would. Hell of a fight, hell of a round 11, which is the round of the year. We can pencil it in right now. This fight is up there for the fights of the year too. What were your thoughts on just watching that fight? Because even the same thing you had said, you already said it earlier. You said it to us in the group chat, and what you said, not to steal your words, but to give you credit for it, is you said that had everything in it that you want a fight to have. And I don't think that could have been any more true about that fight. Now I want to give credit to Rocky Hernandez because he played a part in that also.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna give Shock his flowers, but I do want to say this, and I didn't give Rocky a chance in this fight. I thought Shock was the far superior fighter. Rocky proved to me that you can't judge a book by its cover, bro. You gotta dive into some of these cats fights and see what they really made of. Rocky's a dude, and to be honest with you, that fight doesn't get stopped, he might have a strap right now.
No, he would have. And we'll get into the official scoring later on because I think the clear thing, and even as Backyard Prophet said, there was some legit Gotti Ward stuff. I think that gets over-exaggerated sometimes, but all the credit to what Backyard Prophet said because there's no exaggeration there. That's 100% true. And we'll get into the unofficial scoring, but it's a proven fact. If Rocky Hernandez had stayed on his feet, he would have been the world champion right now.
He wins that fight. But, I mean, Backyard Prophet took the words out of my fucking mouth, bro. You've heard me say several times on here and just in general, we have conversations. We all want Gotti Ward moments, right? The way the rules have changed in boxing, we don't get that as much, if at all, because, they want to protect fighters, and we get it. The health, the advancements, all this, now we got replay and shit. So you don't get Gotti Ward as much. We just got Gotti Ward, bro. 4. Like, this was everything you want in a fight. It had high drama, high skill. Both guys are hurt. Both guys are winging punches. The ring was small, so it was advantageous for a good fight. There was no running. There was no ducking. There was just fighting. And it was fighting at a high level, bro. This wasn't, 2 club-level guys. These are championship-level fighters who showed you why, right? They deserve to be there. And all the credit to Shock because he pulled his nuts off the ground and put in that work. That 11th round, my God, bro. My God. You know what this was? This was everything we wanted Navarrete Valdez to be.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean? They were building that up to be, the greatest, look. This right here, though, man.
This was it.
Shock and Rocky put they shit on display, baby. They was out there. Hats off to both of them. Again, we talk about this all the time. Both of these gentlemen are going to be big time after this. Rocky is going to get bigger, better fights. I don't think there was a loser. Obviously, win-loss column, yes. But I'm going to tell you, Rocky gained a whole new fan in me. You understand? I'm following this dude now. Like I got to see what goes on with this cat because if you show up like that, I got to see what you do next.
And it ain't just you. I think a lot of people, because I had seen Rocky fight a few times, but I didn't know. He showed me in this fight, just like I think a lot of people looked at Shock as being just a pure boxer who kind of didn't want to fight on the inside. He proved everyone wrong because he said, listen, I'm a boxer, but I can still get in there and fight and dog it out. And he did that. Rocky Hernandez was a big knockout puncher, but a lot of people, even like me, questioned his toolbox and some of the dimensions to his game. And he proved, listen, I'm a puncher, but I can fight too. I can do some other things in there too. I'm not just a one punch guy, even though obviously clearly he's got a good punch. He can do some things in that combination work, footwork, and those kind of things too. But one thing I want to get into is the official scoring of the fight. I'm not sure if you've seen the official cards. And well, first I'll ask you: did you see the official cards?
Yeah, I saw that shit.
You have. So one card I had Oshaki Foster up. I think it was either 7-4 or 6-5. So a very close fight, but I did think, and I thought the DAZN commentary wasn't giving Shock any credit for anything he did. Rocky Hernandez might throw a 6-punch combination and land one, and that's the greatest thing ever. Shock will hit him with 4 different punches, and they act like they didn't see it. But nonetheless, he got the job done. But the official scoring going into the last round, they had one judge had Foster up 7-4. Okay, I'm cool with that. One judge had Rocky Hernandez up 8-3. A bit wide. But if you want to say because they're in Mexico and because the crowd is going crazy for all of the Rocky shots, I still think it's borderline incompetence. But you could say maybe you could squeeze that out if you give him every swing round. But my goodness, hold on, let me get this judge by name because I want to make sure that everybody knows this. But we had one scorecard that not only was Foster behind, but he had lost every damn round, including the 11th round, where Rocky was out on his feet for 80% of the round. And Rocky closed in that last minute, and they did exchange for big punches. But yeah, Nicholas Hidalgo, I'm sorry, bro. Your card was absolute corruption. Teddy Atlas always says that bad judging, and Teddy Atlas says some crazy things. One thing is true. Bad judging is either incompetence or it's corruption. That 8-3 card, maybe you could say incompetence, but maybe a bit of corruption. 11-0 is just damn corruption at the end of the day. There is no chance in hell. Even Rocky Hernandez, corner, and family members did not have him up 11-0 in that fight. And to me, I'm thanking the Lord that Shock did finish the fight the way he did, because it would have been another one of these fights. Had Rocky Hernandez won, what do you think would have been the big headline the next day? The fact that we had a great fight or the fact that we had a controversial decision? And I think it's probably the latter, which would have hurt the sport, when in the end, I think this fight just helped elevate the sport. But we were real close there to it backfiring us and it being a really bad weekend for boxing.
Bro, I want to give ESPN some credit before I touch on that. They did, people always give shit to judges and why the judges' scorecards can be so different, right? And then they did the panels. They did hey, this is what one judge sees. Then they pan to the next. Each judge is looking at the fight different. That's what one thing we want people to know. So if one guy does have an 8-3 Hernandez, one guy's got it 8-3 for Shock, they're looking at it. They are looking at it different. Their viewpoints are different. So where Shock might be doing, his thing, he's making, Hernandez miss. He's landing the cleaner, crisper punches. One judge might see it different. He's seeing the big, like you said, he's seeing the big swing and he's seeing all that. Then you got the third judge who's got a completely different view. So I understand different vantage points and viewpoints. But to what you said, anybody in their right mind who didn't give that 11th round shot is either CJ Foster's child, a complete idiot, hence CJ Foster's child, or they've been paid off. And there's no way around that, bro. You there's no way you can tell me that Shock didn't win 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. I don't give a fuck where you're sitting. He won at least 4 of those rounds, right? No matter what your vantage point is. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the way I look at it, is if I can justify you giving some swing, like you said, if you give every swing round to the other guy, maybe you're looking at it different than I am. And that's something we can talk about, right? We have the luxury of getting the sky view. We get we get all the angles, right? So we get to nitpick what they see because they're not looking at that. But to say that he didn't win that 11th round, yo, man, somebody check his bank account.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
He got all sorts of Bitcoin. Somebody that laced him up real nice. Yeah, he got a whole different kind of car after the fight. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy because to me, that's one of the worst scorecards. And this is something that back at our Profit Group comment, I actually made a comment on Twitter saying that this scorecard actually made Adelaide Bird look like a competent judge. Because for as bad as some of her scorecards were, like the 118, 110 Canelo in the first Canelo Golovkin fight, I'm damn near. I don't think I can say I've seen a worse scorecard than 11-0 Rocky Hernandez. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if you have any that jump out to you, but some of that are comparable. But to me, bro, that is an all-time bad card. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
The draw. That Canelo got against Floyd.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's a fact. That's a fact. I always forget about that, but yeah, that's right. That's a fact. That's up there.
Even Canelo had to look on his face like. You know what I'm saying? When the guy you were giving the favor to goes, what?
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know. Again, like I said, even if you're a fan, right? Like even if you're as a judge, if you go into a fight, let's say just as a hypothetical, you're going into a fight and you're going into let's say the Bud Spence fight, right? And you were a Spence guy, like, oh man, I love Spence. This is great. If you gave him any of them, maybe one, I give you one.
Yeah,
If you
I
gave
gave him.
him
I
more,
was gonna say I gave him the first round, so let's settle down
yeah,
a little bit. But after that,
if you
yeah, I
gave
feel you.
him more than one round in that fight, somebody was in your pocket, bro.
Mhm.
Like it's you have to look at that and go, what were you like?
Mhm.
Either again, like I said, either this person and Teddy Atlas is right. And the fucked up thing is, I can't tell you which is worse. Because if you're just that incompetent, where that's what you
Mhm.
legitimately saying you saw, I don't think we can fix that.
Mm-mm. No.
If somebody was in your pocket, well, there's a remedy to that. You know what I mean? But there's no remedy to somebody who's just that fucking stupid, bro. There's no way. Even if you legitimately have Rocky winning that fight, which I'm not going to argue with you. If you had Rocky winning that fight, I can see it. I understand why. I don't agree, but I'm gonna tell you, if you had it close, I wouldn't even. Hey, okay. You know, like I talked to somebody. They said they had a 6'5" Rocky.
Mhm.
I
Cool with
said,
me.
you know
Yeah.
what?
Mhm.
I'm not arguing that. You know what
Mm-mm.
I'm saying? And they said if he'd have made the final bill, they'd have had it a draw. I'm not arguing that. I talked
Mhm.
to somebody who said they had it 7-4, and if he'd have just made it, he'd have won. You know, because it'd have been 7-5. Well, it'd have been a draw because of the knockdown, right?
Mhm.
It'd have been 7-5, but it'd have been draw. And I'm like, you can't. I'm not going to argue with you at all on that. But somebody who tells me they didn't have Shock win in a round,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
somebody
And
needs to
that
investigate.
that would be the same thing as if somebody didn't even have Rocky winning a round. I mean, we were both. I was pulling for Shock to win that fight for sure. Backyard Profit, see 5-5. So he had it even right down the middle. I think that's where a lot of us stood. You had it, I think 7-4 either way. I think it's cool. Like we said, he had it 5-5 to 1. Then you get a few swing rounds mixed in. As you said, they can go either way on that. But just thank the
I
Lord
had
that.
it. I had a six. I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
watched it back. I had a 6-4 Rocky, but with the
Okay.
knockdown, right?
Hmm.
You know, with the 11th, I gave Shock a 10-8-11.
Okay. Hmm.
So you know that's a draw because I think I think he was
Hmm.
on his way to winning the 12th round.
Hmm.
So mhm, mhm.
Yep. No, and I had it. Shock winning the close fight. They said if you guys had Rocky winning the close fight, that's cool. I think just the official scorecards were. I'm just happy that Shock finished and handled business the way he did because it would have been another great fight. Even Haney Lomachenko was a great fight. But I think you hear more talks about the scorecards than you do the actual fight. And I'm not even saying that I still can make an argument. I think Devin Haney could have won that fight. But I think anytime you have controversy surrounding a great fight, it takes away from the fight. As I said, had O'Shaquie Foster been robbed, the first thing we would have talked about wouldn't have been how great a fight it was. It would have been the scorecards, but we could have got to save that for later because it was a hell of a fight.
And I want here's one thing I do want to before people start coming for us with these bullshit ass viewpoints is I've seen close fights that were 10-0,
Hmm.
9-1,
Yeah. Hmm.
8-2, right? So you look at the scorecards and it looks like it's a wide fight, but every one of those rounds was close. So, if you're giving it, which I know you hate, if
Hmm.
you're giving it to the champ because he's the
Hmm.
champ in a close round, then you can see a fight going 12 rounds to nothing or
Hmm.
10-2. Doesn't mean it wasn't a close fight,
Hmm.
right? So even if this guy legitimately was giving all these rounds, which again, hard to believe you gave him the 11th.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, I mean, come on. Um, if you gave him all of those rounds, it still was a close ass fight, right? But you'd like the scorecards to reflect that. And to me, there were rounds where obviously Shock won. For me,
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. That's why the 8-3 scorecard is still a little suspect, but you can give them a bit of the benefit of doubt. The other one, though, held to the absolute no. Moving on now to a fight.
yeah, 8-3, we need to have a conversation.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you can justify 8-3.
Hmm.
11-0,
Yeah, nah, exactly. So we'll move on to now a fight for this weekend, but it's a perfect tie-in because it also could be O'Shaquie Foster's next opponent. We have Joe Cordina fighting in the UK. He's fighting Edward Kid Vasquez in a fight that he's a sizable favorite to win. I do expect Cordina to win. I'm actually a big fan. Like Cordina might actually be my favorite of all the. We give the UK fighters a lot of shit on here, but Cordina is one who I really do rock with. I give him all the respect. He was wrongfully stripped of his title. We talk about all these guys holding on to titles for all these years. He won by knockout to win his title, broke his hand, so then they strip him from his title, won the title back in a great fight against Rakhmonov, Fight of the Year candidate earlier this year, and now he's fighting Edward Kid Vasquez. A name that a lot of people might not know. He's 15-1 with 3 knockouts, but the big thing with him is that, let me get the date of it. February 5th, 2022. So that was on the undercard of Bam Rodriguez and Carlos Cuadras. He fought Raymond Ford, a big matchup prospect. And a lot of people thought he lost a split decision, but a lot of people thought he won that fight. So I think this is his way of getting rewarded for the opportunity. So I think I give him the credit because he has earned this shot. To me, I just think that Cordina is on another level. And I think a fight between him and O'Shaquie Foster is a great fight. If I had to pick one guy, I would pick O'Shaquie Foster to win that fight. But I think Cordina, kind of like Shock, is the perfect mix of kind of a bit of everything. I think he's got the boxing ability. As Hybrid says, he surprised him in his last fight. I think he showed, like Shock did in his last fight, that he fought Rakhmonov, who was a pressure fighter, who was a volume guy, kind of like Rocky Hernandez. He knocked him down a few times, and he really kind of dogged it out in the trenches for a pure boxer. I think that's a great sign to see. We saw him have a big knockout over Kunichi Ogawa last year. So I think we've seen him develop. Backyard Prophet also saying he's the real deal, fighting underrated top-level competition. I'll go out to even say Joe Cordina might be one of the most underrated fighters in boxing right now. I think he'd give Shock a great fight. I think he'd give Emmanuel Navarrete a great fight. I think he'd give anybody at 130 a great fight. We got to see if he wins coming up tomorrow. If he does, I think the Foster fight would be a great fight, a unification fight for next year. What are your thoughts on Joe Cordina and just your thoughts? Do you think this is an easier fight for him? Do you think he could have some trouble? Because I think he does win this fight. I think there could be a few moments where Kid Vasquez is the kind of guy, he knows this is his moment and he's going to come to fight. I think he might sneak a few rounds out, but I just think Joe Cordina is just on another level at the end of the day. Levels fight. Good old levels fight.
Yeah. Let me say this, man. I think that I had to go back and watch some of Cordina's fights. Mm-hmm. Let me be clear here. You know me. I keep it a buck. Mm-hmm. I'd only seen 2 of his fights. I saw that knockout, and I was like, well, that's all I knew of him. So I had to go back and watch some of his fights. I'll say this. My expectation in this fight upcoming is that he knocks this kid out in like inside of 6 rounds, period. I don't think it goes past that. If it does, I'll tip my hat to this kid and go, hey, good job, sir. I'm rocking with him. Like when him and Shock fight each other, if that fight happens, I'm rocking with Shock. That Shock's my guy. I've been on the Shock train for a while, right? So win, lose, or draw, I'm rocking with my guy Shock. But I'll tell you this though, Cordina is a bad man, bro.
Yeah, he is.
That's a bad man. I'm telling you, like people. And you're right. We do kind of give the UK guys some slack. But I do it poking fun. But the thing I actually like about the UK guys is they fight. Mm-hmm. They are not afraid to fight each other. A lot of these guys have losses on their records before they get to the big money US fights because they're fighting each other. They're not the biggest names in the UK fight each other, period. You know what I'm saying? Before Anthony Joshua took his first US fight, he fought Dylan White. He fought all the guys in the UK that were worth a damn. And then he started getting the bigger money fights. But he had to, and that's why you respected him as much as you did up until, he started getting exposed. But the one thing you like about these UK guys, they say, fuck it, let's fight. The Irish guys, especially these motherfuckers, will fight anybody. So, Irish Mickey Ward, hey, I'll fucking fight you in a phone booth.
That's literally my guy right there. Mm-hmm.
Right. And he my favorite fight of all time is him and Emmanuel Augustus. I tell people that all the time, right? Best fight ever. But my favorite anyway. But I will say this though. Cordina, that's a fight that scares me with Shock. That's why I'm kind of like, yeah, that fight would be cool. But I want to see Shock get I want to see him get his shine on with some of these bigger names before I see him fight Cordina, because Cordina might be a guy who can do some things. I wouldn't mind seeing both him and Shock fighting each other later on down the road. Maybe in a big old unification fight. But that's a bad man.
Damn straight it is. And I think actually after I said, I think they might have mandatories next. I forget what card. Maybe the Benavidez Android on the off TV undercard. There's an eliminator for Shock's belt, and I think Cordina has a mandatory, or he might fight Lee Wood, or he might have a mandatory too. So I think you might get your wish. We might get the fight. It just might not be next. That is a great fight. Another fight where Shock would show that he would. We thought he had everything against him against Rocky Hernandez. You might as well replay that thing and it would be the same exact thing. He'd take his ass over to the UK. He would have not a single soul outside of his team and his family rooting for him. He would have the judges would probably already have, and this ain't Cordina's fault because I like Joe Cordina a lot too. But let's be real, the judges would already have him probably out 4 rounds to nothing when the first bell rings. Yeah. And Shock would have to do exactly what he did against Rocky Hernandez to win that fight. It is tricky because as good as Rocky Hernandez is, Joe Cordina is that next level fighter. And it sucks because he might not get the benefit to be able to stop a guy, or if he wins an 8-4, 7-5 fight, the decision might go the other way too. But nonetheless, I digress. That is a fight that I would absolutely love to see. I mean, damn, I hate when I love when I see these fights, but I also hate it because I'm such a big fan of both guys. But I do want to see them get the fight because it's a unification fight. It would be a big spotlight for both those guys, and I think it's a fight where we always talk about these level kind of fights where the winner would go up a bit, be a fringe kind of pound for pound guy, but the loser wouldn't lose any stock at all. Unless you get whitewashed and you lose every round. Even Rocky Hernandez, his status right now is at an all-time high off a damn loss. He had gained more fans, like you were saying, off a loss than he did any of his wins before. And I think that fight would be the same exact thing.
I think it's going to be more difficult for a Shock if he loses because he's already got 2 L's. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about with the diehards. I'm talking about with the promoters and the casual fans, right? Mm-hmm. People are going to be looking at him, well, he's already got 3 L's. Who is this guy? He got lucky, Then you'll start hearing all that bullshit. He got lucky. Mm-hmm. No, bro. This dude earned his way into the position he's in. So
he really earned it too, 100%. Some people don't have to earn it, but he really did, yeah.
I would love for him to get a fight at home or at least fight in the States, maybe a big time Vegas card where, he can get some love, right? Before he jumps back across the pond, to take on these circumstances that, most guys weren't. I think the only guy more willing to fight anywhere to go get a belt was Winky Wright. So, there's that. But to be honest with you, bro, it'd be a fight where I'd be like, woo, I don't know. But I'd be rocking with Shock. And either way, I'm excited to see what both of these dudes do. Mm-hmm. I have Cordina completely dominating his next fight. I think Shock deserves a vacation after that mm-hmm. Rocky fight. You know what I'm saying? And take some time off before he gets his next one in there.
Yeah, that's a fight. And Hybrid, we're on the same page as you, but we would be damn nervous watching that fight because we're a fan of both guys. I'd be worried about all the X factors Shock would have to deal with like I was the last fight, but it's a fight I hope we see. 130 is the kind of division where it kind of looked like 154 even too, where with Jermell now, if Jermell's gone, it might not be a pound for pound guy there yet, but you have with Cordina, with Shock, with Navarrete, and still with Hector Garcia. Let's not forget about him. He's going to fight Lamont Roach coming up. You got 4 legit champions. You have a bunch of really good contenders. I know my guy Abraham Nova. You got William Foster, Henry LeBron a fight this weekend. Oscar Valdez still in the mix. Like there were a lot of great fights to be made at 130. Might not be the biggest fights out there.
What's going on with Supernova, baby? My guy. What happened?
Yeah, I meant to ask you. Yeah, no, it's all good. He's taking care of a few things right now, but I was actually talking to him earlier today, so he will be coming back early 2024. So don't worry about it. The Supernova will be back without a doubt. So he's taking care of some things first, but he will be back better than ever early 2024. Heard it from me.
That's my guy. I fuck with him heavy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So we got a few fights in this undercard. Not that we're going to really touch on. We have Suleiman Sissoko fighting. I've never Isaiah Lucero. I'm not sure who the opponent is, but Suleiman Sissoko is a solid guy. It's a WBC silver welterweight fight, so a decent fight. We have I'm not even going to butcher the first name, but Nonshinga. Yeah, I know he's a IBF light flyweight champion fighting Adriel Curiel. I know Nonshinga won that fight in a war last year. I haven't paid too much attention to his career. Depending on where the top ranked card is, I might catch these fights either or I might have to watch them on replay. But there is one fight that I want to touch on real quick before we go to the top ranked card. It's Ramla Ali against Julissa Guzman. I don't know if you remember that fight, but Ramla Ali was knocked out cold just a few months ago in that fight. And this is kind of the problem that I have with boxing, because Guzman was a huge underdog in the fight. She drops Ali and then knocks her out. And then they just run the fight right back. It's the perfect example of what we used to always say with Lukey on here too, is that it's the example of just that the wrong person won, and they're trying to basically right the wrong in the rematch. And I have a few things here. Guzman's knockout was basically like comparative to like, and it hurts me to say this, especially as a Patriots guy, as a New England guy, but it was the equivalent to like the David Tyree helmet catch in the Super Bowl. Huge underdogs. You have your moment. Bro, that would be like the Patriots or the NFL saying, okay, we're going to run this game back next week again just because we need the Patriots to win. Or Kyrie Irving hitting the shot he did, the step back three against Steph Curry in the 2016 finals. The Warriors with a 73-9 team, the best record of all time. That would be like the NBA saying, you know what? Run that series back again. We want to see if you can do it again. We know you did it already once, but you got to prove it again. And that's the problem I have with this fight. I do know that Guzman's a slight favorite. I do think she probably wins the rematch, but it just bugs me when I see these fights. When we see great fights, some of them not get rematches, then we see rematches for fights that we don't want to see. That's the problem I have. So what do you think on that? Do you have those same kind of thoughts at all?
So I got two trains of thought on that. Mm-hmm. Okay. One is the business side of things, because you always have to remember, no matter what business you're in or what part of the entertainment business you're in, it's business first, entertainment second, right? So that there's that side of it. As a fan, I don't need to see it. Mm-hmm. If you get slept, and I'm talking, if you get your ass thorough, and you were getting your ass whooped before you got slept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like it was just one big punch. Exactly. Anything like that. That's right. A fact.
Yeah, I could see if she was winning the fight or was in the fight, mm-hmm. and then get slept. Oh, okay, I can see running that back. Oh, well, she got lucky. Let me run it back, right? It's like when Caleb Plant smoked Darrell. I don't need to see that again. Darrell wasn't in the fight.
That's a pretty damn good comparison, honestly. That's what it would be like.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you were getting your ass whooped by a guy who's not even that big of a puncher, mm-hmm. right? And then you got absolutely slept. There's no. We're not talking TKO. Mm-hmm. We're not talking. You got up, and and the ref said no, bro. You were counting Z's. It's the same thing, bro. If you get slept, there's no need for me to see it again, unless especially not right away. Not like now, if this girl comes back, Ali, and she gets a couple wins under her belt, maybe gets another belt of her own, then yeah, okay, run it back. Why do I need to see it right away though? Just to your point, right? As a fan, you're going, well, shit, the Patriots don't get to run their losses back. Mm-hmm. If the Bulls hadn't won one of those three ships, the second time around, they wouldn't have got another shot.
Even look this way. When MJ came back in, was it 94? The second year Hakeem won. They lost to the Magic in the playoffs. The NBA, the same thing. It would be like the NBA saying, well, hold on a second, guys. Orlando, I know you won. You guys should go to the finals, but we got to run this back because you guys aren't the same money train the Chicago Bulls are. So exactly the same thing.
And then when MJ came back, that next year they mm-hmm. showed it running back. They whooped their ass.
Yeah.
Chi-town, baby. But but yeah, that'd have been like you said, with the David Tyree helmet catch. Mm-hmm. No, let's run that back next week. Mm-hmm. There's a reason the Super Bowl isn't the best of 7. Mm-hmm. The World Series is, but hey, if the World Series goes 7 games and the wrong team wins, they don't get a game 8.
Yep.
So same thing in the NBA. You don't get a game 8. You win in 7, bro. So, but now to the business side of it, I go, well, who's making more money? At the end of the day, this girl is more profitable than the other girl. Should she have won the fight? On paper. But that's why they settle this shit in the ring, right? But at the same time, You want your fighter. You want the moneymaker. You want the person who's going to put asses in seats. And then that's a good story. If she got slept in the first fight and then comes back and completely outboxes the shit out of this girl, right? Because now she knows she can't bang with her, right? She completely outboxes her and cleans her out. Then that's a good story for them. Oh, well, see, it was just a hiccup. She's right back on track. Then the money train continues. But if she fights this girl again and gets slept again, then what?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's like when Anthony Joshua got annihilated, in his title fights, right? Against Andy. I didn't need to see it again, to be honest with you. I knew they were going to run it back. And if Andy had taken it anywhere kind of serious, if he'd have taken his training any kind of serious, he'd have beat him again. But he got fat. He got out of shape. He got money happy. And you saw what happened. And he was still in that fight.
Yeah. And at least in that first fight, Joshua scored a knockdown and it looked like he was on his way to beating Andy Ruiz. So you could say, okay, if he didn't get caught, then maybe he could have ended up winning. So I think even for this fight, there's no real argument you could make for that at all. So if Ramla Ali wins, bro, I will give her all the credit in the world. I'm just saying that, put it this way. If it was the other way around and she had knocked out that girl is never seeing that fight again. She's getting this fight because she's the A side, because she's the bigger draw. She was the Olympian. She was like the first pro boxer from Somalia, so she was on Time magazine, all those things. And none of that is her fault. But we're saying but it's not also Guzman's fault. So now that instead of her getting a title shot, she has to run this fight back, and knowing if it's a close fight, she might not get a decision either.
What's the female AB, right? She gets that, she pops dirty. You don't see them trying to run her fights back. You know what I mean? Hey, come back cleaner and fight that girl again. That girl's never getting that fight back, right? You know what I'm saying? Why? Because it's not profitable. Nobody gives a shit if you got wronged. Now, if that girl had popped dirty and beat AB, oh, hell would break loose. I bet you AB would get that loss back.
Yeah, it would already be off her record. Yep, exactly.
Right. But because it's AB and she's the money train, nobody really gives a fuck about the girl who lost because she's not the money train. Yeah. So I mean, you've got a huge point, bro. I'll be honest with you. I saw that fight. And look, all due respect to baby girl, she needs to go back into the lab and figure some shit out because she got her ass handed to her and it wasn't close. I hope that she gives a better account of herself this second time around because if not, she's in some trouble.
I was going to say, because you gave her all good advice. The problem is she fights tomorrow, so hopefully her ass has already been in the lab and working on those things. So it's too late to kind of switch up now, but I agree 100%. We got Backyard Profit. This is a great thing, too. This was what I was saying. If there's one division, like you said, for a World Boxing Super Series or the old Super 6, 130 with the champions and the contenders that we mentioned, a lot of guys I think would be interested. I know Abraham Nova, my guy, 100% would be in for it. I think you got a lot of guys in that division. They're all down to take the tough fights, too. I think that's what makes that division so great. And even if we don't have a star right now, if we get these fights in a setting like that, you would get multiple stars as a result of that. And I think it would be great. And that's one of the best divisions that I'd want to see it for. Speaking of MJ, he's thinking of Merjan Akhmadaliev, MJ. I think he deserves the winner of Monster versus Tapales. I think in a way, it's probably just going to move up in weight anyways. I think MJ was even having some trouble making 122 also. So I think MJ might be moving up. But if MJ does stay down there and Tapales loses, I wouldn't be against seeing them in a rematch for one of those vacant belts. I did think it was a close fight. Even a lot of people thought MJ won that fight. So I thought it was a fight. I got no problem with Tapales winning the decision, but maybe those two could run it back for a rematch for a vacant title. But I think if Inoue wins, I think he moves up and fights Robesi Ramirez next year at 126. Then we got Business 242 saying Shaq got busy and hats off to Rocky. That's a fact. And Shaqy Foster and Rocky were both about their business last Saturday night, without a doubt.
Yeah, I wouldn't want smoke with either one of them. Does MJ deserve it? Yes. Will he get it? No.
No. That's what they asked for here. They want us to be honest. So there we go. You heard it from him. From him first. You even heard it from me.
In a way, there's no reason for Inoue to take that fight.
No.
If I'm being honest with you, again, we just talked about it: business versus person. What you feel as a fan of the sport. Business wise, it doesn't make especially coming off of what he did. I mean, look, folks. In a way, it is the show. He's the Canelo of the small guys. Well, Tank is the Canelo, the small guy, but in a way, is that guy.
Yeah,
pretty
for the
much
smaller,
anything.
for the smaller guys, yeah.
Yeah, the
Because Tank's a small
guy,
guy, but he's even smaller, yeah.
But pretty much 130 and below, in a way, can do whatever the fuck he wants. So, again, does he deserve it? Yes. Will he get it?
No. Yeah. Probably the damn truth. I think, like I said, MJ maybe can get to Palace in a rematch, but in a way, I think he's looking for bigger and better things. I think he'll move up. Robeisy Ramirez is the fight that I want to see, and I think that is the fight that we will get. Not that I know anything official, not breaking any news, but if you do see it, you can come back and say, okay, that dude was talking about that fight, and it did end up happening. So we'll see.
In a way, deserves it.
Oh, no, 100%.
He deserves to be able to call his shot.
That dude deserves whatever the hell he wants. I still get PTSD from how he did our guy Fulton, but man, hats off to him.
Oh man, look, I don't. That's one of those fights where you're afraid for Fulton's career. I don't know if Fulton's gonna be the same, right? And because when you look at what Fulton was before, and I mean, you look at that ass whooping, you go, well, shit. Hopefully he comes back and his next fight completely erases our memory from what happened in the monster fight. But yeah, man, look, in a way, it's probably one of the only guys I feel comfortable saying he could get up right now to 135 and probably beat half of the dudes in the top 10, if not all of them. Not named Tank or Shakur.
Yeah, I think at least to 130. And I think, as you said, if it's not an elite guy at 35, I think that's where we can see him eventually. I think he will fight Robeisy at 26. If he wins that fight, maybe he fights a Fernando Lopez, and then we see him against a Navarrete. Some of the fights we've already talked about before on our things, but I do think that he's going to continue to just keep stepping up in weight. So I don't think that once he becomes undisputed, he's just going to kind of keep moving up.
Ron, I'm telling you right now, if Inoue came up right now to 135, he smokes at Cambosis. Tell me he doesn't.
No, I can't. I can't tell you he doesn't. That's for sure.
You feel me? Martin. Look, you're not fucking with it in a way. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Look, I'm sorry.
That's when I wonder if the size and athleticism. I will put it this way. I ain't saying you're wrong without a doubt. I just wonder. I want to see Inoue at 126 and 130, because if he's still smoking guys there, then I think there's a lot of validity to your point. But if he struggles which I'm not even saying he will, but if he struggles against a Robeisy and struggles against a Navarrete, then I think the weight could catch up to him. To me, I just need to be able to see it first before I say anything. But shit, I ain't counting him out against it. Most of those guys.
I tell you right now, and I'm saying this with my full ass chest. He knocks out Navarrete. Cold. Again, from what I've seen, I doubted Inoue for this much time. Never do it again, bro. I mean, Steve Fulton was he put on master classes in boxing, and Inoue made him look like a novice. We can't deny what we saw with our own eyes, bro. This dude beat this dude at his own game and then smoked him. I mean, shit. I'm here to tell you what really. I mean, unless Navarrete lands one of them wild ass uppercuts he throws from Spain, you know what I'm saying? Look, Inoue knocks him out cold, bro.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think as long as Navarrete is not too big, as long as the size doesn't catch up to Inoue at that point, which I don't think it would, but it would even be crazy seeing him in the ring with Navarrete because he'd be so much smaller than him. But I do think, as you said, he's just so much tighter on the shots. Navarrete throws the looping uppercuts, but I just see Inoue catching it, catch and counter, show name. But I see him just catching it and just popping a straight shot or a nice tight hook right inside of it. Some of the things I thought Valdez could have done, Inoue damn sure would be able to do. So I can't doubt you and say that, because I would pick him, I think, over Navarrete at this point.
The only fight he's ever had any problems with was Donaire's last ounce of greatness. He took Donaire's last ounce of greatness, had some trouble, and then what did he do? He came back and was like, "Hold my beer." Watch this. You know what I'm saying? And so, look, bro, I'm here to tell you, man. In a way, different. Like there are very few fighters you can say that about. Where I'd be comfortable no matter what his next fight is, blindly putting my entire paycheck on the line and saying he wins.
Yeah, Backyard Prophet's a little upset. He's like, we're sleeping on his dude Vaquero. I will say is that I'll say I did sleep on Vaquero a little bit, especially before the Valdez fight. I thought that Valdez would beat him. I thought that some of the things I'm saying Inoue could do, I thought Valdez would do, but damn was I wrong. Vaquero's kind of one of those guys, kind of like a Tiafimo and Tyson Fury, the argument we had earlier, where he goes up and down for some fights. The big fights he shows up for. The in-between fights, like the Liam Wilson fight earlier this year, I think he was up and down a bit, but I do want to say that if I'm picking Inoue to beat him, that's only because I think Inoue is the all-time great special fighter. I still think there's a really good chance Navarrete is the best guy at 130 right now. So I see what you're saying. I don't want you to think that we're using this to discredit Navarrete, because I think there's a good chance Navarrete, like I said, is the best guy at 130. So I think it just speaks to how great basically Inoue is. And Hybrid saying the same thing. We thought that he had Inoue beating Fulton, but he just did not seeing him do it in that fashion, and couldn't have said it any better than that.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody and their mama was picking Fulton to win, right? You know, even I had to flip my decision at the last second, and I was on the fence heavy because of how big a fan I was of Fulton. I had to take my fandom of Fulton and put it to the side and just look at these two guys. And I said, okay, look, I got to pick Inoue. I mean, I'd be damned if I'm not going to make the smart choice. Here's what you got to understand. We're huge fans. I'm a huge fan of Navarrete. I'm the only person in ITR who put him in their top 10 pound for pound. So trust me, I'm not overlooking him.
I know.
Go back, read. I know. Go back to the tape.
Sure, you're a Navarrete super fan without a doubt. Yeah, you cannot doubt that. That's a fact.
Go back to. I put Navarrete above Shakur in my pound for pound. So don't hey back. I got you, man. Trust me, I got you. What I'm telling you is Inoue is so special that I don't think it matters. Like again, I just said if he went up to 135, anybody other than Tank or Shakur, I'd be comfortable saying he wins. So when I'm telling you, I have Navarrete higher than Shakur Stevenson on my pound for pound right now. That can change with Shakur's next fight.
And you're not saying that Shakur would lose to Navarrete either. I just want to cover you on that point either. Yeah, exactly.
I think Shakur beats him, but I think as far as what his own body of work, what he's done so far and up to this point, you can't count him out. He's we've gone over that. I explained that, but go back and check. Navarrete I'm super high on that dude. Again, I'm the only person who has him on his pound for pound. I think he's going to go down in the Hall of Fame one day. Saying all that, I think Inoue is a generational talent that you just cannot deny. This dude is going to do whatever the fuck he wants to do until his body says he can't do it anymore. Period.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. And going back to your 135 comment, I think there's a few other guys like a William Zepeda, who's really big with big volume, a Lomachenko still, even a Frank Martin, maybe. I think those guys could have, but the fact that we're even considering, like, bro, he is still at 122. That's 3 divisions higher. The fact that we're even having debates about that, I think just speaks to how damn good that dude is. And I can see Backyard Prophet's comment here, comparison, saying Navarrete is a bigger, weirder Casemiro. Yeah, I think he offers some of the same things, but I think he's more fine-tuned in his skill set than Casemiro is. I think he looks, as you're saying, he's awkward, but I think Navarrete uses that awkwardness to his advantage. I used to think that would get him caught and get knocked out. Not that still won't happen, but he does a good job of using his uppercut at a spot where he can hit the guy, but the guy can't hit him back. He does a good job of timing those things and thinks through things more than I think of Casemiro and more than I even used to give Navarrete credit for also.
Help me out, Jack. I always forget this. Who was the dude who was whooping his ass?
Liam
came back.
Liam Wilson from Australia earlier this year.
Liam Wilson. I thought that fight was over, right? And
even you did it, and you never think fights are over either. You're a fight all the way to the end kind of guy.
I hate TKOs. I do with a passion, right? I've been on here and I've said this a million times. Let these dudes go out on their shield. What I'll say to this though, is Navarrete gained me. I was already a fan, but he gained so much respect from me because I said that dude. He gave you the Gotti Ward moment, right? That was another Gotti Ward moment. He came back, picked his nuts up off the floor, and said, "Watch this." He said, "Look, I'm nobody's bitch. I got a chin. I'm gonna come back. I got heart, and that's what you want from these guys. It's not just the skill, right? It's do you have that? Do you have balls big enough to get in there and get your ass up after somebody's whooped your ass, right? Look, Liam was whooping his ass. let's call it what it is, right? And he picked himself up and said, "Watch me do this." And he beat the guy that. Let's be honest. If he wasn't the champ, they probably would have stopped that fight a couple of rounds earlier, right? And nobody would argue with him. Nobody,
not even you. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Even me, I was like, damn, they should stop that. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm telling you you should have been stopped, then hey. But you like to see that. You like to see a guy make his comeback. And the only reason, and that's why I have him ahead of Shakur, because I haven't had to see Shakur go through that yet, right? I've seen Tank get tested a little bit and weather that storm and come through it. I've seen Inoue get tested and come back and win. We've seen Bud you know what I'm saying? We've seen that from these guys. I haven't seen it from Shakur yet. Not that he needs to prove that to me, but we even saw it from Floyd, right? Floyd had to weather some storms before.
Yeah, we've seen it from Devin Haney's shown it to us multiple times too.
Devin Haney, bro, like let's be real clear. That Lomachenko fight, I thought he was losing. I scored it against him. But I said, when you watch it back, he had to weather some storms, right?
Came back in that 12th round, yep.
There are a lot of other guys who would have wilted under that Lomachenko pressure and those shots that he landed. Hats off to Devin Haney. He made it through. So whether you think he won or lost the fight or not, it tells you who that guy is when he gets into the ring, right? I got everything I need to know about Navarrete, bro. So I did all that to tell Backyard, hey man, I got you. But in a way, that's a whole nother dude. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got a comment here from Business 242 saying Cordina is avoiding shock. He's trying to say Matchroom and the Zone don't have the money to put up a world title unification between Foster and Cordina. Now, I will say I have seen that before. I think that was that right when Foster got his belt, I know, but I'll say Business 242 for you. Do you think that is more? Because I'm not sure if I've seen Cordina say it. I've seen Eddie Hearn say those things. Is that more Cordina avoiding shock, or is that more Matchroom and Eddie Hearn into Zone potentially avoiding shock? Because they know that Cordina is a big draw in the UK and they want to kind of hold on to that belt. So I'm going to cut my boy Joe Cordina a little bit of slack here and say maybe it's not him. It might be the people around him. Nibs, do you have anything to comment on that? Do you agree with me, or do you think that Cordina might just be kind of looking the other way and saying, I'm not trying to mess with that dude right now?
To be honest with you, I haven't seen anything from Cordina that would lead me to believe he's got any kind of bitch in him. So I'm going to err on the side that this is more of a business deal that isn't working than in promoters. And we've seen it, right? And I mean, how many fights recently have gotten made when fighters just meet up and say, hey, let's do this. You know what I'm saying? Like the fighters have to put it, like, let's face it, you got the poster behind you. We wouldn't have had Bud and Spence until Bud and Spence finally called each other and said, hey, bro, let's make this happen. Like, fuck these promoters, fuck all this other shit. What do we need to do to make it happen? And then it happened. Floyd and Pacquiao. It finally got to the point where they ran into each other at a fucking basketball game, met up at the hotel later and was like, hey, let's make it pop. And then it happens. So, I think Usyk and Tyson, right? They had to talk to each other before this fight got figured out. They had to figure some shit out. Hey, let's make it happen. So I think, if fighters really want to make these fights happen and your promoter's in the way, which happens a lot, right? Especially when you're not on a superstar level. Sometimes you kind of have to just follow what the promoter says. You're not really in a power position to make those moves. But I do think, hey, look, at the end of the day, if you got a strap, if you're a champion, if you're already on pay-per-views or you're already on the zone or whatever else, and you got a fight that you want to make happen, reach out to the other dude. If y'all really both selling that smoke, get together, make it happen.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. And we're almost coming up on 2 hours here. So the good thing is that, well, not the good thing, but next week's kind of a bye week in boxing. So I think at this point we'll kind of save the Fantasy Fight Friday and we'll kind of do a whole, because like we said, we don't want to give just a little taste and say, okay, we're picking this guy to win this now. We want to kind of give a whole debate on it. So I figured you'd agree with that. I figured it's better to kind of save that for another day so we can fully expand on it. Hybrid, you asked a good point saying Bivol and Beterbiev just met up too. They were in Saudi Arabia for the Fury and Ngannou fight. So let's hope to God that that's a fight that they can make happen. Same thing, two guys, man to man.
And they wanted to fight each other. Mm-hmm. The WBC was flat out refusing, bro. Like, so you can't say this is just the fighters not wanting to fight each other. When not even a promoter, but the strap is telling you, nah, we're not doing it. Like, what are you supposed to do, bro? You know what I mean? Like, because let's face it, the money, until you get to the Canelo, the Floyd, the Muhammad Ali kind of level of fame, the money comes with those straps. So you need those straps there to, generate, this money for these fights. So if one strap is saying, nah, we're not going to do it, then yeah, I mean, shit, it doesn't make sense, right? So I hope you're right. I hope them meeting up, thank God, so we can get that out the way.
That's another great fight. Pound for pound implications too. And of course, it's the WBC, the same damn organization that's going to rank Francis Ngannou in the top 10. They're saying the same organization that ranked Tommy Fury for beating Jake Paul has a problem with that fight. So that just speaks to the mess of the WBC. I mean, give them credit. They're the green belt and everything, but they're about as hypocritical as you could possibly be of any sanctioning body organization. And they're all damn hypocritical. So I think that just even speaks even more.
I know this goes against everything that I put out into the universe. Mm-hmm. I'm not even mad at the WBC for that. And I get it. I know I'm going to catch hell. I wouldn't do it. He's nowhere near a ranking in my book. But you have to give them some kind of leeway on that, because I'm like, well, he damn near beat the guy. Mm-hmm. Who's the guy? Right? Now, if he'd have beat him, he'd be the champion in their ranking. Yeah. So it's like you kind of give them a little bit of a, like, okay, well, this dude, a lot of people think he won that fight.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like not just crazed MMA fans. There were legitimate people in the boxing world who say, hey, I think he won that fight. I can't be too mad at that. Everything else they do, is bullshit. Like, I'll be the first one to say, I was like, well, I can't blame him. Like, he damn near won the fucking fight. I can't,
I feel that. I just feel bad for whatever fighter that's in the top 10 is going to get removed out of the top 10 to make spot for him. Let's say you're a dude like Frank Sanchez and you're like, listen, give me that Ngannou fight right now. Like, whoever it is that gets removed from the top 10, they still be in the rankings, but they would say, listen, give me that dude. I'll beat him for the ranking spot. The problem is they wouldn't be able to get that fight because of money, politics, all the things that we just mentioned. So
there are a lot of guys licking their chops at Fury right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Damn sure.
Ngannou, there are a whole bunch of legitimate top 10, top 15, top 20 guys who are going, yo, sign me the fuck up. Hey, if Ngannou can give them that business, you know what I mean? If I'm people in Jared Anderson's camp, I'm going, hey, this might be our shot. Joe Joyce, hey man, get your shit together. We might be able to get another, you know what I mean? Another shot. Big Bang Zang, all these guys. I'm like, yo, there are a lot of dudes probably licking their chops going, yo, you just got floored by a novice.
No, without a doubt. Without a doubt, I'm sure they are. So we'll now real quickly, we'll just spend a few minutes on this before we wrap it up. Just touch on, there is another card tomorrow night. It's a top ranked card at I think it's in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. F.A. Ajagba against Joseph Goodall is the main event. Kind of an interesting fight. Some history behind it. Joe Goodall beat F.A. Ajagba in the amateurs before in the 2014 Commonwealth Games. So he's already beaten F.A. They've sparred a good amount, I believe, as professionals. Goodall is coming off the win against Stephen Shaw, a big knockout win, who's a guy who F.A. beat but went the distance with. And we know that math doesn't always work out. I am picking F.A. to win the fight, but I think that Goodall is certainly a live dog. And anytime you get two heavyweights out there who are taking tough fights and are entertaining guys. I think we want to give him credit for that without a doubt too. We got Henry LeBron against William Foster on the undercard. A fantastic fight. I love this fight. Henry LeBron is someone who he's a good, solid fighter, just waiting for, I think, a big win to put him into a legit contender role. And I think that William Foster would be that guy. I'm picking William Foster to win this. William Foster is a New England guy. He's in the Connecticut area. I know people who have been around him and done work with him this summer, and they say he is a sharp dude. He's actually Edwin De Los Santos, the dude who Shakur is going to fight. His only loss was to William Foster by decision just last year. So Foster is legit. The definition of high risk, low reward, he hasn't been. He's been kind of out of a major network deal. He's fought on Pro Box. He's fought on Showbox, some of these other deals. But I'm so happy to see him finally get an opportunity. I think he will beat Henry LeBron. And even if he doesn't, I think it's the same kind of fight. The loser of that fight doesn't go down. It only elevates the winner. We've got Raymond Morataya against Diego Torres Nunez. Morataya is a bad man also, one of those lightweights in the mix there too. A fight with Keyshawn Davis, a fight I'd love to see. We got Javier Martinez, Omar Rosario, Charlie Sheehy, a whole bunch of guys on the undercard. We don't have to go in depth on the undercard, but if there's any other fights you want to touch on, you can. But what are your thoughts just on the F.A. Ajagba fight, fighting Joe Goodall, who's probably, I'm sure, more confident than ever coming off of the big win he had against Stephen Shaw, which I know we were surprised to see because we've had Shaw on. I think you spoke with Shaw on a different platform, and it was just a huge upset, and he's now earned the right to fight F.A. in a main event on ESPN.
Look, man. So F.A. for me should win this fight on paper. He should win this fight, in my opinion. Right. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. The Shaw win is less impressive the more I think about it, though. You know, with his opponent, because and I again have myself to fault for this. I didn't go over in depth Stephen Shaw's record. When we did interview him before on the other platform you're talking about. There were a lot of bums on his record. Let's be real clear, not to be disrespectful, but to point out the truth. He gets his opportunities, and then he proves why he's fighting nothing but the lower tier guys. I think F.A. Ajagba is different. I think outside of the guys at the top of the division, I think he can beat all these B-level fighters. You know what I mean? I think he's that guy where it's like, but if you beat him, then you're ready. Again, I hate to throw out the gatekeeper because I don't think he's at that level yet. I think he's still a step above that. But it's like if you beat him, then you should be fighting, guys in the top 10 next, right?
You become certified. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like when Anderson beat Charles Martin. That's why we were all so fucking disappointed with his next fight because we're like, what? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? You just beat Charles Martin, bro. And you're going backwards. So I think if you beat a guy like an F.A., then you should definitely be moving up. But I feel F.A. is going to get this guy out of there. Be honest with you, I don't see it being that difficult of a fight because I think that the only people at this point in F.A.'s career that can beat him are the upper echelon heavyweights.
Yeah, but I want to give F.A. credit because he took the loss to Frank Sanchez. It's funny, though, because Frank Sanchez beat F.A. and did everything you said you don't want to see a guy do. And it's not his fault, but then he turned around and went back 3 different levels, and we haven't seen him in a big fight since, which is not his fault. He's got the kind of style and just doesn't have enough backing behind him. So who in their damn mind would go out of their way to fight a Frank Sanchez? I know I wouldn't if I was managing someone, but F.A. gets a lot of credit for me. He's fought all these undefeated guys after he beat Stephen Shaw. He beat Zahn. He made Kasabuski basically quit by a low blow. Andrew Galata style in his last fight against an undefeated guy who was a heavy hitter guy. So F.A. is just one of these dudes who's out here taking tough fights. He might not win them all. I mean, he's only lost one so far, though, but he's the kind of guy that we want to see in the sport. And I think that this is the kind of fight where Goodall is game. I think he comes to fight. I actually think he might probably last a distance, but I just think the boxing, because we always knew F.A. was a big puncher. But I think I've seen the boxing, which a lot of people look at as boring, and I can see why as people could think that way. But to me, to me, a guy like FA being boring is actually huge for him, because if he's able to have the power and also be able to sneak it out and win a fight behind a jab, I think that makes him even tougher to beat than some other guys. So I think I'm giving him credit by saying that people are calling him boring. I think that's actually a good thing for him, and it shows he's developed more tools than he had before.
You would never call Tyson Fury boring.
No.
Right? He's one of the better boxers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usyk isn't boring. He's a boxer. You know what I mean? He's not a fighter. He's not a slugger. He's a boxer. A lot of people, that was one of the big knocks on Floyd, right? He's a boxer, so he's boring because he's not knocking people out. Well, you know, for the casual fans, I see it. But for those of us who actually know what the fuck boxing means, it's hit, don't get hit. You know what I mean? FA's been hit a lot. So as a heavyweight, you want to be a better boxer, right? Because literally what we've been talking about this whole fucking shit with the Ngannou thing. One punch can change the whole fucking fight. We got it with a novice and one of the best of all time. Prove that, right? If you're FA, you know that one punch can literally change everything in heavyweight. So yeah, you got lights out power. You got highlight reel knockouts. You know what I'm saying? But a guy who can box circles around you just did that. Now what do you do? Because you're going to get up there with some of these big boys. Like, hey, Big Bang Zhang has got, you know, a hell of a punch, but the boy can box.
Yeah.
You know, he proved that, right? You know, Deontay's getting way better at his boxing than just his punch, right? You know, Anthony Joshua, all things we say bad about him, right? The boy can box. So if you're going to get up there with these bigger guys, you better figure that part out real quick, because just punching power isn't enough, you know, at the bigger level, man.
Yeah, this is fact. So we got one more comment by Backyard Prophet saying, as knowledgeable boxing fans, I don't know how you guys can watch the fighters that they are trotting out at heavyweight. So I got a question for you, because I think you make fair points. Are you saying the matchmaking, the way that some of these guys are matched up? Are you just saying the heavyweight division as a whole? Because it's interesting fights. I will say that the heavyweight division is clearly not the division that it's been before. I think a lot of that just goes back to, even in America, we see, look at how many of these guys, like a Myles Garrett in the NFL, or so many LeBron James, these guys that have gone into other sports. The new school power forward and defensive end that we see making millions and millions of dollars, back in the day probably would have been boxers. So I think you're losing out so many of those guys. Like I said, like the guys from 6'4" to 6'7" who are big, jacked up, but are fluid athletes who are able to play in the NFL, play in the NBA. I think that's part of it. If you're talking about the matchmaking, I think that's fair too. I think that actually the FA and Goodall fight is good matchmaking, and Goodall gets the credit because he beat Shaw, who FA also beat to get the fight. But we've talked many times about, I talked earlier about Arslanbek Makhmudov's matchmaking. We've talked about Richard Torres, who's a great guy. Like, we're not taking anything away from these guys because it's not their fault. But I do agree. And I do think what you're saying here, that there are about 5 or 6 good skill fighters, and then the talent level does drop off. I agree with that. I think that the further down you go, the more the skills drop down. But I still think that there can be fun fights because of the skill deficiencies. I think if they're matched in the right ways, we could see fun fights like Fabio Wardley, David Adelaide, for example, last week. Neither one of those guys are a top 10 guy, a top 15 guy. But I think if those guys are matched properly, I think you can still see them in fun fights. But I think all the points you're making are true. I think that the heavyweight division, for as good as it looks at the top, it does lack the depth, that I still think it is kind of in a downtime in terms of the history of the sport.
I agree to a point. I think that the elite, I look at it in stages, right? There's the elite. And like you said, yeah, there's about 5 or 6 guys that are elite heavyweights, you know, and we talk about them all the time. I don't have to rehash who those guys are, right? But yeah, it does fall off heavy after them. But at heavyweight, it's supposed to. You feel me? Like at 147, there's a big pool, and then there's the top guys. At heavyweight, you've got actual stages. So there's a big pool of whatever, right? Then there's another big pool of really, really good. We don't know what we got yet. You know what I'm saying? And if anybody who's been watching boxing, you know that. We don't know what we got with Jared Anderson yet, right? We think we know, but then he reverts back. So we don't know. You think you knew what you had with Charles Martin. Then he surprises you and has a really good fight and a loss, right? Albeit. So you don't know he fuck around and come back and get a good fight. There's a big pool of we don't know what we got yet. Then there's the guys that are right below the elite guys, right? But they're so far behind the elite guys that it creates that big distance. To be honest with you, in other divisions, the distance between the elite and the we don't know yet's isn't that big. So it's easier for these guys to get some of those fights because they're literally right there. In heavyweight, you know who the best are. You can you can even ask casual fans who are the best top 5 heavyweights. Most of them can at least give you 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? So it's who those guys are. Most people don't know who the rest of them are, and that's the problem. We're getting there though. I think once we figure that pool out, oh man, and there's some exciting fights in that pool, right? Because they are on the same level, but then you do get some trash guys who get thrown in as an opponent. Hey, that's boxing. That shit ain't ever gonna change.
Yeah, and I will say with heavyweights, it's just that we just saw last weekend in a fight that the talent gap was so big, which because they're heavyweights, one punch can still change anything. So I think that's what still makes these fights intriguing. But hey, you see that first name he threw out there, so I'm definitely not going to doubt him on this at all. I agree 100%. I agree with you. I would at the high for would I rather watch a mid-level heavyweight fight or a top-end lighter weight fighters? Lightweight fighters all day. There ain't no debate on that. Juno Nakatani, if you don't know Backyard Prophet, that is my guy. I have stamped him as many times over. I already got him in my pound-for-pound list. I caught some slack for it, but I don't care because anybody who's giving me shit for having him in my pound-for-pound list will have him in their pound-for-pound list pretty damn soon. So I agree 100% on that.
Fuck you if you got a problem with it. He said what he said with his whole goddamn chest.
Yeah.
Catch and then, goddamn count.
Yeah. And I'm nice and cool with that just because you know why? Because they're gonna see and they're gonna eventually find out. So if it was something that I didn't know if it would happen or not later on, I might get worked up. But I'm like, okay, I'll just sit back, watch him for a few more years, and see where y'all have him on your list. That's all.
Jack, we are the authority in all things boxing. You ain't gotta explain shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, Backyard Prophet, bro, I'm with you, man. Look, I've been in love with the lower weights since I started watching boxing. Like everybody else, I love to see the big boys throw around because I mean that shit's exciting to watch. But I've been in love with the lower weights for a long ass time. You give me pretty much any. I'm watching all the fights from 126 to 147. I'm watching them all. You know what I mean? Because they're all pretty fun. I watch Telemundo fights just because that's what their meat and potatoes is the smaller guys. You put that shit on mute, they get busy. So yeah, I'm with you, bro. But yeah, the high level fights. You've got to go below the heavyweight division to get them. And I want to kind of throw the cruiserweight division a little love. People disrespect them a lot. I'm going to tell you right, because I heard some statement, and I just want to clarify this real quick, and I'm going to go too deep into it. Somebody said, well, Jake Paul could eventually be the cruiserweight cruiserweight champion of the world. No, the fuck he can't. That's all I got to say.
No, that's a fact. And I was back at Prophet even said too. When I got into boxing, I've only been into boxing a few years, picked up a lot of knowledge in these few years. But I think each year I get more and more into the lower weight classes where I think now, before, in a way, Chocolatito, Juan Estrada, I knew those guys, but I didn't know the depths of the divisions. Now I can go down to where I know Kenshiro Taraji, I know Jonathan Baba Gonzalez, I know the champs at 108. 105, that's a little too far still. I know who the guys are there. Some of them I haven't seen them fight enough, but without a doubt, those guys are highly skilled still. But spent a little over 2 hours, so Nibs, we can give you a short and concise version, but we always end the show one way, so you can give it a short version, maybe a little Cliff Notes version of it, but it ain't a catch and counter show if we don't put them onto some local boxing game.
Man, look here, man, and I say this all the time. Go through no matter who you have in your top 10 pound for pound, they all started in damn near the same place. A local establishment, right? You look at your favorite female boxers right now. Most of them weren't superstars overnight. Amanda Serrano talked recently about she had fights recently, in recent years, and boxing gyms that barely fit 100 people. But high school football fields, bars. These guys in for $5,000, if that. support your local fighters. Support your local fight cards, because those people on those cards and then those people working for those cards will eventually get to a point where you'll be seeing them on ESPN, you'll be seeing them on whatever comes after Showtime, you'll be seeing the DAZNs, and you go, shit, I paid $5 to watch that dude fight in a baseball field. Jack was recently at a fight, card that was held at a local baseball field, if I'm not get me wrong.
Baseball field and a football field both this year, 100%.
And he said those were some of the most entertainment times of his life. Not only are you supporting people, but these are entertaining fights. People love it. Again, you get to support your local fans and fighters. Please do it. It's what boxing is built on. Support your local guys.
Couldn't have said it any better. That's why I let Nibs do that. But y'all can catch us back. We will be back next Friday. Not any fights to break down next Friday, but we will recap the fights we have from tomorrow, and we will really get into this whole fantasy fight Friday idea. We were going to have 3, 4, maybe 5 of them. We got some good ones, so stay tuned. We always appreciate you hitting the like button, all those things. If you have any suggestions for any segment ideas, any topics, or any fantasy fights you want to see us discuss, drop them down in the comments. And I also want to plug, I meant to plug it earlier, but Dakota from ITR just published his episode of The Fight Life with Shadeja Green. So you can check us out. That is on our OFTV. You can go to our Instagram page for a direct link of that. He did great work. Shadeja Green is a great fighter. She's going to be in some huge fights coming up. So if you don't know, go find out right now. Without a doubt, Nibs, always your pleasure. And a salute to all y'all. We will catch you guys next Friday.
Thank you for everybody who's fucking with us.